recording in
I'm here, Alan Peskowitz.
Sue, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you, but it's sort of, can everybody try to speak?
I can hear you, Sue.
Okay. Can you hear?
Alan, can you hear the room?
I can hear you.
Okay, good. We'll start. All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Town of Newington Conservation Commission, December 16, 2025. With the recording secretary, please take the roll call.
Yes, Commissioner Anderson,
Here.
Commissioner Bashand,
Here.
Commissioner Conway, Commissioner Morris,
Here.
Commissioner Ostrinsky, Commissioner Sadil,
Here.
Commissioner Ellis, Commissioner Paskowitz,
Here.
Commissioner Wimett,
Here.
Chairman Zellick.
Here. All right, I'm missing Commissioner Conway, so I'm going to seat. She said she wasn't going. Right, I'm going to seat Commissioner Morris for Commissioner Conway. The other two, Ostrinsky and Ellis, are alternates. So we'll continue. Looks like we have a full commission. First item, organizational meeting, election of officers for 2026. Do we have nominations for chairman?
I'll nominate Chairman Zellick to be reappointed for chairman.
Okay, I'll accept the nomination. Any others? I'll
I second that, Commissioner Peskowitz.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Pasowitz. Any other nominations? All right, seeing none, I'll take it to a quick vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, next one is for vice chair. Nominations for vice chair.
I nominate Vice Chair Andreas. I think he's vice chair now, isn't he?
I'll second that.
All right, Commissioner Sidell, do you accept the nomination?
I accept.
Good. Any other nominations for vice chair? All right, seeing none, all in favor for Commissioner Sidell, say aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstentions?
Who seconded?
Somebody did. I did.
Or somebody.
All right, moving on for secretary nominations, please.
Mr. Wimett,
Ugh.
he's a good reader.
I'll second that. Commissioner Wet, you accept?
Yes.
All right, any other nominations for secretary? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? All right, congratulations to all. Moving on, setting of the regular meeting dates for 2026. We have a proposed Conservation Commission meeting schedule in a PDF. First, you want to go over these dates for us? Anything that we need to note?
I'm sorry.
The proposed dates.
Yes.
I see an asterisk.
Yes, the asterisk is for a holiday. So the date is, long now.
Any concern? Any concern with that?
Well, town hall's open.
Okay. We need a motion to accept the proposed dates.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Omet. Any a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Anderson. All in favor of accepting the dates, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Dates are accepted as proposed. Moving on to acceptance of minutes, approval of minutes from the November 11th, 2025 meeting.
So moved.
Any modifications to the minutes?
None here.
Any other commissioners? All right, seeing none, a motion to accept the minutes. Commissioner Willett.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Accept the minutes.
Second from Commissioner Bouchon.
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, minutes are accepted. Moving on to public hearing. This is application IW 25-14 to amend the Town of Newington Inland Wetland and Watercourse map and to construct a single-family residence within the upland review area at 33 Laurel Circle in the R20 zone. Applicant Rossetti Development LLC, owner SJ Fish and Sons Incorporated, contact Robert Rossetti. Application received 9/2/25, September 2nd, 25. Public hearing opened 11/18/25. Just for the record, I want to note this public hearing, the way it is been submitted by the town includes the site plan. Normally, when we do these public hearings for a watercourse map amendment, we do the map separately. But I do want to point out to commissioners that this public hearing also includes the site plan. So at the last meeting in November, we only discussed the map amendment. We didn't really talk about the site plan. So I want you all to be aware of that and to be sure that you review that site plan this evening. So, see the applicant is present. If you could just state your name for the record.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Alan Von Giovanni. I'm licensed land surveyor in the state of Connecticut. Alan, in the microphone.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, staff. For the record, my name is Alan Bon Giovanni. I'm a licensed land surveyor in the state of Connecticut. My office is at 170 Payne Road in Newington. I'm representing Robert Rossetti and Rossetti Development in the application before you this evening. The property is located at 33 Laurel Circle here in Newington. It's an existing lot of record. It was a lot that was created as part of a subdivision in 1968. It's been vacant all this time. We're here asking for a amendment to the map, official wetlands map, to reflect the actual conditions in the field. This is our third meeting on this project. Scott Stevens is our soil scientist. He was here for the previous two meetings, made a presentation to the commission regarding what he found with the soil conditions there on the site. We're providing a little history at the first meeting about how the town maps were created and how they're not 100% accurate. So based on his evaluation, and I think, Chris, do you have the wetland amendment map?
See if I can get that for you.
Is the soil scientist present this evening?
He's not. He was not available this evening. The map that the town engineer is trying to bring up on the screen was a map that we had revised since the last meeting based on some comments from the staff and I believe through the commission regarding the aesthetics of the map, how it looked, so that it could be a little clearer for what the actual intent is. I have a hard copy. If we have somewhere to put it up, we can work with that. Chris?
I'll pass it around real quick. I was the one that was most hung up on where the line should be. So.
Just note for the record that Mr. Bongiovanni has presented the map to Commissioner Bouchant.
So the gray shaded area is the area that is to be removed. This purple line represents the actual wetlands. Everything to the east of that is wetlands according to the map. Our blue line is actual flagged wetlands by the soil scientist. There's probably 5 or 10 square foot of actual wetlands on the subject lot. Everything else would be in the upland review area. And we're requesting that everything shown in gray shade here be removed from the official map.
So this is existing, this is proposed.
Correct.
Okay.
Basically would follow the lot line till this little triangle, then go back to the property line.
Doesn't that seem logical?
Absolutely.
You weren't here for the meeting, but I thought you would agree.
That's,
Hand it around.
that's exactly what you said.
Whatever the meeting, that will tackle. Practical solution.
Well.
All right, so Chris, there was an outstanding question for the town attorney regarding the mapping that the soil scientists have presented. He gave us the actual delineation and the question was, can we leave that delineation hanging? Can you change the delineation on someone else's property?
So we did not get a legal opinion from the town attorney, staff and discussion, it was the town planner myself and other people would like their people who were biased. Commissions recognize that the town does in fact change maps on people's property, whether there's zoning maps or map nature. So no, we did not hear from a town attorney as far as tonight's meeting goes. It is something that we do.
Okay. So that kind of brings us back to square one. The question was if we couldn't change it on someone's property, we would move it up to the property line.
Yeah.
But however, that seems arbitrary since we have the factual line. The commission just can't decide on its own where the line should be. I think we have to take the evidence that's presented. This is the factual evidence given to us by the soil scientist. The map is what it is. As we heard from staff, there's no impact to the abutters.
There's just a suggestion that why don't we just wait until someday if those abutters came to before us, then they could use that same data at that time.
Well, that's
Because I don't
that's the
think we're gonna-
purpose of the map amendment. It's a public hearing. The abutters should have all been notified. Correct, Chris?
I have been down there.
Okay, so
Well, then it would require more modifications, I guess, because he's got it following the property line. So then it would have to kind of branch off and hit the end of wherever they left off and the other end where they left
right,
off over
but
here.
that
So it would
was,
follow the
we
property.
had, you know, the open items. What do we do with the dangling line, the actual delineations versus the proposal of following the wetland, or excuse me, the property boundary? So my opinion is you use the facts, you don't make up your own line. I don't think we're at liberty to make up our own line when we have a factual line that exists and has no impact to any of the butters.
I would say it's just supporting, documentation, but I don't know if I completely agree because I think it's gonna have to redraw that line again. But I guess we could still approve it with just that condition that you're happy with the way the final map comes out. If we chose to vote on it.
So.
If
go
I
ahead,
may,
Mr.
Mr. Chairman,
Giovanni.
and the town prepared the application for the map amendment. The application is for this subject property, 33 Laurel Circle. It's not for the neighboring property, so I think it's appropriate to change it for the lot we have mapped and what I show there And I don't know that it's necessarily appropriate to change it on the Churchill Bridge property or the NIL BHR LLC property. It's a line that goes into their property, doesn't have a closure on it. And again, it's not an application that's before the commission.
So Mr. Bongiovanni makes a good argument.
I agree.
What do the commissioners feel about this?
I
Chairman,
agree.
if I may.
Go ahead, Commissioner Siddell.
So see where it says wetland flag -1 from that point? That's where it falls off. But if we keep the wetland line with the green line, I think we're being conservative, are we not? It would be a conservative assessment, even though we don't have the data in hand. I think that is a conservative delineation. What I throw that over to the commission, or to Mr. Bongiovanni as well.
Well, I think if you pull the wetland delineation back to what the soil scientist has flagged, it's less impactful to the site plan because you've pulled the wetlands away further than the property line.
Yes.
So I
But
think that's more conservative. You're giving the property owner more
yes,
room.
by the blue line, but since we don't have the data, if we switch over to the green line, you are, I don't think, does the property owner have an issue with that, that line is being conservative north of the wetland flag #1?
I'm not really following you as far as like, how is it conservative?
Because usually if you follow wetland flag 2 up to wetland flag 1, it's heading off to the northeast, right? It's heading in that direction. Would you not? Would it not, if we had data, it's sort of leaning in that direction. However, we're pulling it anything north of wetland flag 1, we're sort of pulling it to the left, which based on the grade is being conservative. That's my point. Am I not? Mr. Bongiovanni, Mr. Chris, the engineer, what do you think?
I think we're talking apples and oranges here. I agree with you that for the map amendment, Commissioner Siddell, what you're stating is it would be less impactful to leave it at the property line as we've shown on the proposed map. What the chairman's saying is if we look at where the wetlands line is as shown by the soil scientist on the neighboring property, there's more distance to the actual work that we're going to do. So that would be more conservative in that respect. At the end of the day, our entire property, based on the new location, is all within the regulated area. So everything that happens on the lot is still regulated. By taking the soil scientist line beyond our property line, it does show that we have 28 feet to the corner of the garage as opposed to 11 feet to the property line. But at the end of the day, it's all in the upland review area.
Now, one final question. In between the V, see where you have south 2247, 0 degrees west, where you have the green line on the left and the wetland on the right with the blue line, right?
Yes.
What does that sliver mean? What does that new sliver mean to the map then, in between that sliver, that pie slice, if you're a pizza pie slice? What
That
is
would be
is that
upland.
that is considered wetland now.
It is considered wetland now, and if we are approved to change the wetlands map to the lot line, to the property line, it will still be wetlands according to the official map. According to the soil types, it isn't.
Mr. Bongiovanni, if you could just clarify for me, regardless, so if the wetland line is moved to the property line, or if the wetland line is moved to the flagged line, there's no gain either way. You're still
We're still
completely
regulated.
in the upland review area.
Correct.
Okay, so with that said, they're completely in the upland review area, regardless of where the line goes. I say that we go with the factual line just for clarity.
The only problem is that was never completed. So I mean, it's just, that's arbitrary. That just ends So then you're gonna say, well,
Well,
what are you gonna do? Just draw a beeline straight to the
So-
property line or
so
straight up
let's-
to the corner? or-
let's ask the experts who do the mapping. What's the solution? What do they do?
So what Mr. Bongiovanni is showing here is, in my opinion, short of having the soil scientist flag the neighbor's property, the best solution you're gonna come up with for this particular application, where we're holding his property boundary line that will allow him to build his project on his property. It'll still be regulated by, flood zone and upland review area and conditions of the application's permit. So it's the best data we've got at the moment.
I don't know that answers your question. What
Uh,
happens to that line that is just dangling there at the end?
Nothing really happens to it because the new boundary will be the property line. So yes, in fact, the wetlands are a little further into the neighbor's property, but for purposes of this map amendment, it will be the boundary line.
But what if, for the purposes of this map amendment, it was the actual wetlands delineation?
We would have had to have more data to show where that line goes, which I think is the point that Commissioner Sedil is making. But we don't have that information, so the best we can do is hold the property.
And we can legally do that, just arbitrarily decide where the wetland line is when we know what the factual wetland delineation is?
Yes, because we're not affecting any other applicants' application in the future. Should the neighboring property owner want to come in to this commission and build something on their property, they'll go through the same process that we're doing this applicant.
Okay,
But they could use that as a starting point. This map will be filed with those marks on it.
Yes,
Okay, so then it's factual, then they would use that as a starting point.
but they would still have to have their own soil scientists do their own work on their own property.
Well, if we're accepting this, then they would start at that point. They wouldn't have to redo this work,
It could-
I would think.
Wetlands do change over time.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that we have this commission for, is to evaluate soil scientists' work and all that goes with it. We come back to this property in, 8 or 10 years, and let's say that water course between the hotel and this property has changed. It may not be a wetland in 8 or 10 years.
Chairman Zellick,
Commissioner Paskowitz?
why are we discussing this purview of the line stopping where it is and then trying to continue it into another envelope? I'm quite sure why we're at this.
Did you not hear the discussion that preceded this?
Yes, I did. But I'm still not sure of, why we're continuing this interest that it may not be of significant value.
Well, that's why we're having a discussion to disseminate whether there is a significant value, if there's any impact. And we just determined that there's no impact. They're still in the upland review area regardless of where the line goes. And we also just heard from staff that we can make a map amendment along a property line and we don't have to follow the actual delineation that was provided by the soil scientists. We need to have this discussion so that we cover all the bases and we don't make any mistakes. Does that answer your question?
Not really.
Well, I don't know how I can make it any clearer for you, Commissioner.
May I-
Commissioner Bashant.
So the problem I see with what you're getting at is like, how would you extend it? Would you just bring it at a 90-degree line back, from the end of the delineation on the neighboring property back to the property line, or would you go all the way up to the pin in the corner? That would, that could be something that's imposing something on this neighboring property that they might not appreciate or they might not accept. So that's why I think that it becomes a problem. Because the work was never completed there. The guy basically just wandered off because he didn't know exactly, where he was there. So that's why we have those flags. So I think that could be a problem. Like how would you do it? Theoretically, you'd go up to the corner pin from the end of the last, marking, but the neighboring property owner might not agree with that. They might be opposed to that. Feel that impose something on that.
All right, any further discussion regarding the property line being the wetland delineation? Commissioners online? Any other questions regarding the map?
Yes, I'd like to know what the conclusion is gonna be to this.
I believe that the commission is
When we vote on
happy
it, that'll
that
be
we're
the
going
conclusion.
to have the wetland delineation be the property boundary rather than the actual flag delineation. Does that answer your question?
Well, if that's your answer, that's all I have to speak to. Yes.
Okay, so, any other questions regarding the wetland map? Okay, then let's move on to the site plan part of this public hearing.
First, we have the site plan. I'll start for the site plan portion. So as I said earlier in my presentation, this is an existing lot of record. This was property was subdivided. Laurel Circle was created in 1968. These lots were created before wetlands were created. And the town, it is a lot of record. The property owner does have the right to develop this property for the purpose it was intended when it was created. We're proposing to construct a single-family home with a detached garage on it. There'll actually be architecturally be probably some connection between the garage and the actual house structure, but that's the basic position that we're proposing. It would be a slab on grade construction, basically because there's not great soil conditions in the area, as well as there is floodplain to the 500-year floodplain in the lower southeast corner of the property. So to avoid any potential problems in the future, the developer is proposing a slab on grade. It's going to be serviced by MVC sewer and water, underground electric and telephone, and cable. We've on the plan, we've shown the standard details for erosion and sediment control, soil stockpile with the appropriate silt fence around it, silt fence around the proposed construction area, site grading and drainage, and an anti-tracking mat for access during construction.
Commissioners, any questions regarding the site plan?
I'll just ask the engineer, because I don't have the copy in front of me and I can't see it up there. Does it meet all the side yard and rear yard and front yard requirements?
I believe it does. Those lines are shown on the plan. Now, this is the cul-de-sac, so you'll see the front yard is curved. So that looks a little misleading as far as where they're located, but they are behind the front yard setback.
And the front yard setback would follow that curve anyway, correct?
It does.
So, I wish the soil scientist was here because I did want to ask him if he did any testing in the yard area and on the site. Maybe you can answer those questions, Mr. Bongiovanni.
So we actually had Clarence Welty Associates do some borings on the site for the subsurface conditions. There is unsuitable material in there. He's going to be designing a foundation and structural systems to support that house for this lot. It may very well be piles or micro piles or some sort of more elaborate than a conventional foundation.
Okay, so I'm curious as to what the soil scientist found when he did those borings and how far down he went. Because we did hear from the public at the last meeting. One of the abutting property owners, his house, I guess when it was built in the 70s, sunk, they estimate between 6 and 8 inches. And I've read the record again, the comments from the member of the public that the lot at one time was too wet to build on. And I just kind of curious what happened over time so that that lot is now suitable for development.
I'm sorry, did you just say unsuitable, that it was?
There is some unsuitable soil.
Okay, all right.
Structurally unsuitable soil.
I just want
Yeah,
to make sure I heard that right.
I can't speak to the historical perspective of this lot, what's happened over time. I can tell you that since we've been involved in the last couple of years, we did hire Clarence Welty Associates, a geotechnical engineer that did borings, I think 25 or 30 feet. We do have a soil report on the structural integrity of the soils and the conditions of low grade. The house won't support a standard slab and spread footing foundation. A lot will not support that. It will require some more extraordinary type of foundation design. And that will be done by Clarence Welty Associates to accommodate this house structure. I believe the neighboring houses in the area were constructed with traditional spread footings and concrete foundations. That probably should have been done differently at the time that they were built. Those unsuitable conditions may have been farther below grade than what they excavated at the time. This isn't uncommon in this section in Newington to find areas of unsuitable material. The access drive just south of this to the backside of Churchill Bridge condominiums, for years that sunk. And they had to excavate and rebuild that for a number of times over the years. If you go further down, as was explained to me, at one time, thousands of years ago, the Connecticut River ran through this area and sections of Foxborough condominiums are on piles. There was a peat bog in that area. As well as on the other side of Stanwell Road, a large manufacturing company there was built. They started construction on the building and the foundation was failing before they started to put the building on it. They ended up removing it and putting piles in for that foundation.
Chairman Zelik,
Commissioner Paskowitz.
was that Alan Bongiovanni that was speaking?
Yes.
I'd like to ask him a question if I could,
Go ahead.
and for you as well. What is the soil type that's proposed for the building on that lot?
The soil types that we're proposing?
Well, the soil type that's been delineated on that lot.
I don't know if I have the soil report with me.
So, Alan, on your plan, it shows 308, if I remember, the urban land complex known as Udorphin. Matt, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's actually, you're correct. It's labeled right here on the plan. 308 is Udorthans, which is made land, disturbed land. Whether this was, again, when they built the subdivision, when they pushed off spoils and the unsuitable to this lot, I don't know what happened. But it's not original soil for the most portion of the, for the majority of this lot.
Maybe I should rephrase my question. What is the soil series type that's listed on a map in Connecticut?
So the series are Udorthans. That's the type of soils that are there.
Endorphins are. Is it clay?
It's probably a mixture of, whatever was there that wasn't natural. It could be clay, it could be silt, it could be a whole host of different things there.
Leftover gravel from the road construction.
Who's speaking?
So finish. Are you done, Commissioner Paskowitz?
No, I'd like to know the comment that was just been brought up by the commissioner.
That was Chris's last comment. He was asking who was.
I didn't hear it.
Oh, Alan, that was me. It was Chris.
I didn't hear it. I'm sorry.
Chris, I think your microphone's not on.
My apologies. I do that a lot. Yeah, Alan, that was me at the end there. This urban land complex is a mixture of all kinds of materials, whatever they had left over from the road, whatever they had left over from anything. There's no real way short of excavating it all out and sieving it to find out what it really is, and that's not practical.
So you're saying it's not virgin soil?
It is not.
Okay, but according to a map in Connecticut for it's superficial, what's the soil that was there in that area originally? Do you know what I'm saying?
I think you're asking what, if I was to go back and look at the original soil conservation services maps from the 50s or even the 60s, what was there before this area was developed? Unfortunately, I didn't do my homework. I didn't look that up before the meeting. I would imagine it's not that much different from a lot of the soils along the Berwyn Turnpike, a lot of Newington clay. I don't remember exactly what its specific designation is, but we run into that a lot here in town. It's really good for making bricks.
If it helps at all, Alan, the areas of the site that aren't the Eudorthans are Ellington silt loam, non-wetland soils, and Hartford sandy loam. And that's pretty typical of this area.
So we're not speaking to Berlin soil series of clay.
We don't have that plot. Not necessarily.
I see. Thank you. That's all I have.
I just want to point out that we're talking about two different type of soil samples that I think Alan's referring to the wetland soil samples, but when they're doing borings, correct me if I'm wrong, we're not talking about that. We're just talking about structural suitability, and we're talking about much deeper in the ground than the soil scientist test.
Yes, John, you're right. I agree.
So, again, Commissioner Lumet just asked me why we don't have this in our pocket or our packet. Is this the new
That was,
modified map?
No, this came out in October.
this
It
is
was
the
in your
original
packets
site
in
plan.
October.
This is the original site plan.
So nothing changed except that moving of that line.
Correct. If I could refresh Commissioner Bashan's memory at the first meeting, when we were talking about going back and forth about the having to change the wetlands map, whether it was required or not. And Commissioner Bashan was an advocate for doing a map amendment. I believe your words were, well, the site plan's a slam dunk. It's just a matter of the technicality here.
I still agree. I mean, we agreed with your soil scientist that that was no longer a well. That's why I said that he did his work for a map amendment.
So,
May I just add one more thing
go ahead
to that
Commissioner
comment?
Bashan.
So, I mean, as far as the structural stuff goes, we have to rely on engineering and the building department. That's not really our purview. So, you know, there was compelling anecdotal evidence from that neighbor. I wonder if that's possible. That's why I asked him, was it the garage floor that settled or the actual foundation that settled? Because that'd be pretty extraordinary for foundations to settle. Because our foundations are usually so well overbuilt, but you seem to acknowledge that a conventional foundation wouldn't work here. So again, we're not claiming the suitability of the structure itself, just on the wetland issues.
Yeah, so going back to the soil types and the wetlands and the history of this, my concern is where I was kind of curious, is there, you know, perhaps wetland soils beneath that fill? You know, is there a water table there that could impact the wetlands? If there was contamination on the site, could it potentially leach into the wetlands?
So when Scott Stevens did his analysis of the soils and his inspection in the field and his spade and auger borings, he took his samples up to 3 foot in depth, and that is the standard requirement for their analysis. Beyond that is beyond the scope of soil science. If there's groundwater, as there is under most of us, including the town hall where we sit right now, that's not considered a wetland. That's groundwater.
Okay.
And
Nope, that's
we
the
believe-
answer I wanted to hear.
yeah, we believe
Yeah.
there's groundwater here.
Okay.
You know, and that's why we're not putting a basement in there. Why introduce potential problems?
Right. Okay, so the commission is aware of the suitability concerns, but it is out of our purview. So let's go back to focusing on impact to the wetlands. If this is like a standard yard, what's going to prevent, say, herbicides and pesticides from entering the wetland?
Well, I don't know if you've, Mr. Chairman, had a chance to look at this. It looks like a park. The neighbors have maintained this as a lawn, other than the tree area back there. It's probably been fertilized and pesticide since the first house was built there. We don't expect the occupants of this house to do anything different than the average homeowner does in the town of Newington. I know on more sensitive projects, we've talked about how can we restrict pesticides, herbicides, and nitrogen from entering the wetlands. I don't know that the town's ever come up with a regulation or a standard to do that. But again, it's a single family residential lot. It's going to have less lawn area after it's done. So there's potentially the opportunity for less pesticides, herbicides, and chemicals.
All right, but, you know, to counter your point, just because they've been doing that doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. And if there's ways to prevent that from entering into the wetlands, I'd like to have that put out. You know, I'd like to ask you to propose some type of solution that would prevent pesticides and herbicides from entering the wetlands, since they do border your property line. It looks like the entire east side of the property is encumbered by wetlands. So I would like a proposal as to how you would prevent those chemicals from entering the wetlands.
So we can be happy to work with staff to establish a planting regimen along that area for plants that are naturally conducive to uptake of nutrients and help pre-treat the runoff, the surface runoff. I mean, it's typical to rain garden plantings, things like that. I wouldn't want to put an excavation or create a depression in the ground there, because I think that could just create an issue for mosquitoes in the future. But I think if we planted a row of some of the ornamental grasses and things along that property line to help filter that out, I think that would be a positive.
Paul would be my resource for that.
All right, is that a condition that we can add?
Sure.
Could you draft something up real quick for us? All right, commissioners, any other concerns?
Well, just with the concern that you had, I can't see the numbers in the contour lines. I'm sorry, my eyes aren't that good. Which way is the ground? Is it flowing? The water? Is it going towards the road or towards the wetland?
No, so it
Down
goes from,
It's going.
it goes from the west.
Okay,
to the east.
thank you.
And also south, I think they're.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance.
So
to
the
go out there.
elevation here is
Okay,
you know,
now I see it.
116, 14,
All
12.
right,
It goes
so it
this
is
way
flowing
and then
that way. All right.
things go south.
All right, so since the water does flow towards the wetlands, we are saying it is heading easterly across the property.
Yes.
I think it would be prudent to try to come up with some type of measure to prevent any type of chemicals from entering the wetlands. Any other comments, questions from commissioners? Regarding the
Chairman
site?
Zellick, if I may,
Commissioner Siddell?
thank you. On your map here, talking about the limit of flood zone over on the right here. How does that affect things? What is the concern there, or how could that impact the wetland?
Yeah, that's the limit of the 500-year flood. The 0.2% chance of a flood reaching that level every 500 years. You could potentially have water rise to that level in this watershed. It doesn't really affect the wetlands. That would be an inundation from a storm, not permanent or long-term water sitting in that area.
Next question about the tree line, proposed tree line versus existing tree line. Can you give an explanation for that? How is that going to be altered, the before and the after?
So we're not proposing to change the tree line. All the work that we're proposing is going to be done in the current area that's lawn. The trees are going to remain as they are.
Okay, and the other plantings would be north of that, where I see the squiggle line would be sort of northeast of that, where those trees are, where the tree line is.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions, concerns from commissioners? All right, seeing none, we'll move to public comments, since this is a public hearing. All right, any member of the public wishing to comment on this application can come forward at this time. All right, seeing none in the room, anybody online?
We do have one attendee online, but he does not have his hand raised.
All right, if there's an attendee online that would like to comment on this application, they can raise their hand. Still nothing.
I'm asking him to unmute. He apparently does not wish to speak.
Okay, then we'll close public comments on the public hearing. Commissioners, anything else before we close the public hearing?
Would you like to hear a proposed 11th condition?
Certainly.
Applicant to work with staff to design a planting schedule to mitigate chemical infiltration into the property to the south and east of subject parcel.
And can we add that such plantings will be maintained in perpetuity by property owner?
Sure.
All right, anything else, commissioners?
None here.
All right, then can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Lumet, second by
Yes, and Paskovich.
Commissioner Morris. All in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Right.
Any abstentions? Any opposed? All right, passes unanimously. Then we'll go on to discussion. Commissioners, anything else you want to discuss before we talk about the motion?
We can move that up to,
Oh, yeah, we should actually do that under old business, closing the public hearing.
you want to move it up? It's
I
first
don't
in our
want
lines, or?
to change the agenda. It's too late for that. All right, so we'll continue discussion when we get down to old business during this meeting. All right, we'll move on to public participation on non-agenda items. Any member of the public wishing to speak, come forward. And seeing none in the room, anybody online wishing to speak? Nothing, Chris?
I do not have anybody with their hand raised.
All right, we'll move on to new business. Application IW 25-18 to extend parking lot approximately 180 feet and to add a retaining wall at the southern portion of the existing parking lot into the historical pad site at 2929 Bowen Turnpike in the PD Plan Development Zone. Applicant BSC Group Incorporated. Contact Frank Vasca, owner Berlin Turnpike 2929 LLC. Application received 11/11/25. The applicant is present. Forward, state their name for the record.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For the record, my name is Francis Vaca from BSC Group in Glastonbury, Connecticut, located at 180 Glastonbury Boulevard in Glastonbury. I also have Representative Matt Gustafson from All Points Technology here is a soil scientist located in Waterbury. We are here on behalf of Doro Restaurant Group and State Point Properties for the parking lot extension at Casadora Newington. You have seen us here before. This essentially is the similar presentation that had been presented in previous meetings, but we have this evening additional information to try to answer the questions that had been left at the meeting where we were denied. Again, we are here to respectfully request the approval under Section 10 of the latest Newington wetland regulations for the installation of parking lot extensions south of the current restaurant parking area. And agenda this evening, I'm again going to try to focus on those questions that were left, and in particular, have Matt present his wetland assessment, which was one of the main points of the request from the commission in previous meetings. Again, just to refamiliarize everyone, Casadoro is the former Bertucci's located at 2929 Berlin Turnpike. The focus of this is the pad site that is located to the south. It is a grassed area right now. Well, right now it is actually a temporary parking area, and we are proposing a larger parking lot in this general vicinity. Again, the red line identified here is essentially a berm that has been installed, and this larger portion here is currently a gravel lot that is temporary parking. The lot size is 3.56 acres with a almost 7,000 square foot building and 109 existing parking spaces, which meets the parking requirement for the restaurant. Again, what are proposing? There has not been any substantial changes to the layout of the parking, the wall, or any of that. We've provided some additional information on the plans to answer some of those questions. And again, we have the assessment from Mr. Gustafson. Again, parking lot, we are proposing to replace 47 spaces, and we are adding 150 additional spaces for a total parking count of 211 spaces, utilizing some of the regulation requirements to allow for compact space sizes and so on in accordance with the Newington regulations. Everything is essentially what has been presented in the past for the site plan, but we're just providing, again, additional information as per the commission's requests. At this point, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Matt to go through the wetland assessment, which was one of the main components of the request from the commission in previous meetings.
Nothing changed structurally?
Nothing changed structurally, no.
Thank you, Mr. Vaca. Again, for the record, Matt Gustafson, registered soil scientist with All Points Technology. I want to present some of the summary of the wetland assessment that has been provided in the application package. I'll start with a discussion of the lone wetland that is located on and adjacent to the property, which consists of the perennial watercourse that drains north to south along the western edge of the subject property. It generally consists of a very well confined and incised, historically artificially channelized stream system, about 5 feet wide with a sandy mucky bottom. The banks to this resource are entirely filled, consisting of filled edges, consistent with a channelized resource. There's portions of that bank that have been historically armored with riprap material. Those extents are primarily located along the southern and central portions of this resource. There is an existing retaining wall that is off property on one of the southwestern lots that also provides the direct bank to this resource. As is condition of a resource like this, the perennial watercourse has been historically and routinely heavily impacted. There is large amounts of debris, litter, shopping carts, curbing. Pretty much, if you can think of it, you could probably find it in here. The vegetation there is some complex vegetation as the stream drains from north to south. Northern stretches do have some edge forest, primarily with an overstory of red maple, American elm. with a few scatterings of cottonwood and your typical Norway maple that you find in disturbed edges. As you move farther south, where there has been more recent development in proximity to that retaining wall, you do have more of a shrub emergent habitat composition that's heavily dominated by jewelweed, purple loosestrife, and your common reader, Phragmites, as it's commonly known. Multiflora is present throughout everywhere in the state, but also here. As part of our assessment of the wetland, we did perform a wetland function and value assessment that's consistent with the Army Corps of Engineers methodology. An assessment of this wetland 1 found that this wetland really only supported the groundwater discharge function. And because of the high levels of impact, it really only supported this function at a secondary level. For those unfamiliar with the methodology and how it's done, it's based on several different parameters. There's many different functions and values that wetlands can provide. And depending on how many how many items that wetland can support within that function or value, it is given either a tier rating of principal, which is the highest, or secondary, or none at all. So in the case of this wetland, again, the only function that this provides at any level is the groundwater discharge and recharge function, which in this case is at a secondary level. The other functions like flood flow alteration, nutrient retention, sediment transformation, production export, wildlife habitat, all those other functions are not supported by this wetland. And it's primarily, or it's entirely because of its anthropogenic nature, it being a channelized perennial water course, it being heavily influenced and impacted by the surrounding development, really diminishes the potential for this wetland to support any of those other functions at any critical level. For those that can see the image on the screen, that is a picture of the water course in question, somewhat to the central, to the southern half, right before the bend of the wetland, within the kind of the edge of the western property limits. We've also provided a discussion of the upland buffer habitat, those areas that are located along the interface between the existing gravel lot to the west and to the south and this wetland. Primarily consists of transitional edge forest and shrub habitats. This is a very narrow feature, nearly a single windrow of trees, pretty consistent with areas like this, heavily dominated by things like Norway maple, box elder, with some ash in there. That's typical of ash species in this region. Ash does not do very well in this region, so they're primarily dying out along those edges. All the trees are pretty heavily stressed between the dominance of Asiatic, or the, excuse me, the
Emerald borer, is that what?
yeah, certainly. I mean, because of the trees and the nexus for pests and pathogens, they're all routinely stressed. They don't have protection by other trees. So you have things even like wind shear that, as trees move around, they hit against each other. All those provide stress. Poor soils, since these are all filled soils, fairly xeric, so they don't have a good hydro regime as well. So all the trees are fairly stressed. They're not doing terribly well. Norway maples, being an invasive species, happens to be doing better than the other ones, as just they're more tolerant of these conditions. However, and again, the bittersweet is climbing up over these trees like they do everything else in the area, which is just compounding that stress. The understory is almost entirely dominated by invasive species, things like honeysuckle, multiflora rose, your autumn olive are pretty prevalent in the understory. There is almost a complete lack of native species in the understory. Because of that, this buffer is really not providing too much of a value as a wetland buffer to the resource. There is some shading potential, but because this is largely a warm water stream, largely due to the number of stormwater inputs to the stream, the typical functions that a shaded buffer provide in cooling the stream are really immaterial here. The water is already plenty warm from all the stormwater inputs from all the surrounding developments, so the shade value is pretty diminished. Any sort of your other kind of values provided by an upland buffer in the form of kind of nutrient removal, or things of that nature, sediment removal, those things of that nature. It's pretty limited opportunity again, because the stream is so already impacted and routinely gets inputs from stormwater, from the surrounding landscapes. The buffer is really not capable of providing any sort of significant function for that capacity. So I'll briefly go over this because I know you guys have already spoken about what the impacts to this resource are from a regulatory standpoint. The project is not proposing any direct wetland impacts. There are impacts to the upland review area, totaling about 30,000 square feet. As far as it impacts to the function and value of this wetland, we obviously are proposing a retaining wall in close proximity to the wetland. However, considering the existing banks of this resource are largely filled material, with my opinion that the introduction of a retaining wall over that, that fill material does not substantially change the function and value that this wetland will provide pre versus post development of the proposed project. Again, the sole function that this wetland provides in groundwater recharge is not going to be diminished by the addition of a retaining wall in these locations. We are, because of the proximity to the wetland, we have provided some additional, and this is probably the sole area of new changes to the site plan from what you guys have seen previously. We are proposing a wetland protection program. While the wetland is already degraded, and we've gone over that in detail, we certainly do not want to be adding to that degradation in a significant capacity during construction. So to mitigate for that, we are proposing a wetland protection plan, which includes monitoring during construction by a wetland scientist to ensure that the plan is being met as it's proposed, that all the ENS controls that are proposed are being installed and maintained during construction, that there will be a spill prevention plan as well to ensure that there's no accidental releases. There's contractor training portion of this as well that happens prior to the start of construction to make sure that all the workers on site are aware of where the wetlands are, what the limits of the disturbance is, and to ensure there's no, again, accidental impact to the wetland that's unintentional. We also are proposing some enhancement measures along that new interface at the bottom of the retaining wall. Previously, there was already specified some seed mixtures, some native seed mixtures, spec'd out by New England wetland plants who provide seed mixtures that are not only natively sourced, but genetically sourced, locally sourced as well. There is the wetland and restoration mix that is suitable for wet sites, as well as a showy wildflower mix for the higher sides that are not quite as wet. In addition, we're proposing live staking on about 3 to 4 feet on center at the base of the retaining wall to enhance that interface with a combination of woody willows and dogwoods, likely a complex of pussy willow, beb willow, and silky dogwood would be the likely species depending on time of year and availability in nursery stock. So I believe at this point, I'll hand it back to Mr. Vaca. Thank you.
Don't go anywhere yet, Matt.
Sure.
You used the word perennial to describe the water course.
Yes.
What does that mean?
So in the state of Connecticut, streams are identified as two different classifications, primarily perennial or intermittent. Perennial means that most years it has year-round flow. Intermittent means most years it will dry up for periods of the year.
Okay. And then the primary function again, did I hear groundwater discharge or was it stormwater discharge?
So the core, how the technical terminology, groundwater recharge discharge, which is two different capacities that are kind of lumped together. One being the ability for a wetland to provide water to the aquifer, and the other being the opposite, the ability for an aquifer to recharge the wetland area. In this case, this isn't really a seep wetland, this is a water course. So there's some capacity there's a lot of water here. It is eventually discharging, it is feeding another wetland on the other side of Berlin Turnpike. So it does have the ability to kind of recharge that wetland. But again, because of the diminished capacity of this wetland, that's why it's not being considered a principal function. But that is what that term means.
Okay,
Correct.
so
It's not feeding that.
it's coming from, right? It's just the opposite of what you said.
Well, there's another wetland on the other side as well. So this continues to flow underneath Berlin Turnpike as well. So it goes comes in and then discharges as well.
So if we go to figure 2, your wetland resource map.
Yes.
Well, no, I need this larger. This was in. the
Yeah,
wetland
there's an
resource
image here that's just a cutout of that, but
This is what he's talking about.
Churchill, right?
There's figure 2. There's also figure 1, which I'm going to reference. So if you want to have that ready.
So they're gonna.
is that the map you're looking for? Yeah.
Yep, that's it. All right. So to the east of the Berlin Turnpike, there's a large viable wetland, several acres.
Right.
And that's where this water, I would say it's the headwaters. This is where that water is being discharged from and going along that water
Correct, yep.
course. Heading north, and then it crosses, I believe that's Lewis Street
Lewis
to the
Street,
north.
yep.
And continues up to a second large wetland. So we have 2
Yes.
large wetlands that are very viable in this town. And this is the primary water course which connects those wetlands. So as I expressed in the prior application, we're kind of taking myopic view of this wetland if we only look at it on this property and don't pull back to the larger map where it is used to connect these 2 wetlands together. So although the quality of it, locally may not be high quality, it is an important waterway that connects 2 viable wetlands. So my concern is that it has to be protected so that we don't get contamination, et cetera, going into that water course, as the water flows from one viable wetland to another viable wetland. So again, when you show those photographs of the stream and I see all that vegetation, I hear you say, it's invasive species, but they still are providing a function of protecting that water course, are they not?
Yeah, and if I may, I would agree with that assessment. This is obviously an important conveyance, is how I'd probably term it, between those 2 wetlands. I would make the point, or in my professional opinion, that you're correct. The plants are providing some ability to attenuate the soils in that area. These plants being shrubs and trees are, typically the types of plants and the types of habitat that are best at retaining pollutants, sediments, are those that are densely planted, things like emergence, dense shrub. This being a fill slope that is largely trees, the primary capacity of that vegetation is to retain those soils, to retain that slope. Your biggest potential impact to this resource is losing that slope. If it washed out, sediment, the stuff that's in the sediment, all draining into the wetland, and then eventually, as you made your point, going across Lewis Street into another higher quality wetland. This application is by proposing a retaining wall, which also kind of maintains the limit of where the fill is, does not it does not directly impact the wetland, mimics that function by retaining those soils. In addition, through, and Mr. Vaca could probably speak to this better than I can, the improvements to the drainage conditions on the site would likely result in improvement in the ability for things like the heavy metals, the hydrocarbons associated with cars that are going to be parking on there to being filtered out as part of that plan over the vegetation that's currently present. So to your point, plants are important, but plants are not all made equal. The plants that we have out there currently don't really provide a significant function in kind of filtering out the kind of pollutants that you typically would get in a system like this. And if I made one additional thought on that, the proposed plantings that we are proposing at the bottom, being willows and the conservation and wetland seed mixes, those are the types of species that are very good at filtering out those types of pollutants and sediments. There's going to be densely planted, or those species, the willows and the dogwoods, they're bushy species. They're very tolerant of these sort of impacted areas. They're very good at retaining bank stabilization and establishing in these types of zones. And the seed mixtures that are proposed, in addition, that will create those kind of emergent, densely planted areas that are better suited for filtering out these kind of contaminants.
Okay, Commissioner Bashant, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm disappointed that there's no structural changes because my concerns are more with the degree of encroachment, which we're talking about 80% of the buffer. I would call that a nexus. You're calling it a drainage ditch. It's kind of demeaning, I think. I know it's dirty, but it is an important nexus between two viable water bodies or wetlands. So it's definitely a corridor for wildlife traveling between them. And you're wiping out the majority of that buffer. And I'm not comfortable with that at all. I'm telling you right now. So I'm disappointed when you said there was no structural changes. My concern wasn't for the water quality so much as it was for that extent of that encroachment into the buffer. And I was there today and looking at it, and I asked this question. I don't know if you were able to get me an answer. I asked, what's the amount of fill? Because this is basically a wetland filling permit is what you're asking for. Because I was looking at it today. It's clearly hundreds of cubic yards, but potentially thousands of cubic yards that you're going to have to bring in there to level this. So did you get an answer on that? And then I would ask the engineer, is there some degree or some level that, I know mining is strictly regulated for stripping material out. Is there any regulation for the amount that you could bring into a site?
Not that I'm aware
Is there
of.
a trigger point or something like that?
No, the
Because
only.
it's massive. It's a massive filling operation.
Sure, the only concern we would have is that this wall, when it's designed, have an adequate foundation to support that material it's retaining. As we discussed the last time this application came through, at this stage in their plan development, they won't have that level of engineering. That's something we would review through the building permit application that will come with this, how they're going to make sure this foundation stays put.
I can answer more of that question as I go through the remainder of the presentation, and we can obviously continue this discussion.
If I may just answer
Sure.
the wildlife question, since it was asked, and before we move on. To your point on this being a wildlife corridor, wildlife is obviously a very broad term about which species that are potentially being talked about. In the case of the species that are potentially using the watercourse itself, those species would not likely be impacted.
I'm talking about the watercourse. I'm talking about the two wetlands. So traveling between the two wetlands.
So again,
they're going
yeah,
to use that
there are going to
corridor.
be species that are going to be using the aquatic portion of this corridor, and there's going to be species using the terrestrial, portion of this corridor. So where I was making the point before, those aquatic species that are using this corridor are not going to, it would not be expected those would be impacted by the proposed project. Those potentially using the terrestrial corridor are pretty heavily developed to withstand, they're using a corridor that's already heavily developed. These species are adapted. They're used to dealing with an urbanized scenario. We're not talking about, there's certainly no listed species that are recorded in this area. Review of the natural diversity database to not determine there's any listed species that are here. So we're not talking about sensitive species we're talking about generalist species that are used to living and walking and utilizing these areas with high levels of human interaction and influence nearby. And in that regard, while we are removing some of that area and maybe a large portion in this kind of localized area, that kind of utilization of this corridor would largely go uninterrupted. What you're really going to be using is, the species that expected to be using this area are using the aquatic portion of it, which is not going to be directly impacted.
Well, we're gonna be, forcing them to walk across the parking lot at Price Chopper or whatever it is there.
Yeah, frankly, so when I did this inspection originally, there's this area, as you may expect, it's very small in nature already. It's already heavily fragmented. The species that you're seeing in here are things like raccoons, chipmunks, some heavily urbanized birds, starlings, things of that nature. Species that are not going to be heavily impacted by any sort of development.
Beaver, which we don't really want to promote. Bobcat, we have bears, deer, all kinds of.
Yeah. So beaver, again, they're using that aquatic interface. Largely beavers that are moving are juveniles that are looking for new areas to habitate. They would still be able to use this uninterrupted. Again, where there's no direct impact to the wetland. The water course is going to function the same before as it did after. Those other species are frankly not using something like this. There's no ability for them. The culverts on either side are not suitable wildlife crossings for any sort of large mammals or anything of that nature. Even something like a deer is not able to be using this. I mean, we're talking about fill slopes that are really, I had to come in at the top. I walked the middle of the stream to do this delineation because there was no ability to walk on the edges of this resource. This is fully channelized in between two, very steeply sloped fill soils. So yeah, those species that, we're talking about the large mammals, the sensitive, more, the furries and the flappies, as I call them, they're really not using these areas all that consistently. The smaller mammals will be using this area. You'll see squirrels in here probably. You'll see chipmunks. Raccoons will wander in here after they've come, probably dumpster diving at one of the various dumpsters, and they may be using this for cover. But certainly those species are not terribly imperiled. Not that they're not important, but there's certainly a multitude of habitats that, if there was some minor dislocation, that they could very easily adjust to that.
Alan Selleck.
Commissioner Paskowitz.
Yes, I'm listening to these conversations about wildlife and movement and disruption that could occur. And there has been more disruption that's been occurring in our town of Newington as I see bears now in my neighborhood crossing the street in front of my car. So no one can tell me that there's not disruption in a stream, bank, or place of this concentration where animals move and thrive as a habitat. They're being impacted and they're moving about in our neighborhoods now because of the impact of these types of significant overreaching in wetlands. And I have a concern with that. And I'm listening to both sides of the story, and I feel we need to look closely at everything we're looking at. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Paskowitz.
Yeah, and I mean that's a fair point. My response and my assessment of this area would be that those sort of impacts that are being talked about there have already happened to this wetland. This wetland's already been fragmented. There's already development up to the bank edge on a majority of the wetland. So that impact, that fragmentation, the habitat fragmentation that you're talking about that is pushing wildlife out has really already happened to this wetland. The additional, and I'll say minor because of the amount of that's, by comparison of what's already happened to this wetland, what's being proposed is fairly minor in the context of this wetlands landscape, is not going to significantly degrade this wetlands habitat connectivity to other wetlands. Again, the ability for the wetland to convey both aquatic wildlife or water between those wetlands is largely going to be uninterrupted.
Well, that's fine for you to say, but wildlife don't think like you think. They try to continue their habitat and breeding within the means of where they are. And if they have to keep moving out, it's not conducive to the neighborhood of our humans. And that's what I'm seeing here, not just for this site or any site that you're speaking to. I'm not against the site or what you're trying to do. Just we have to be trying to think beyond the package of what we're doing to reduce the habitat from dying off and not knowing where to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Paskowitz.
I'm just piggyback on what Alan said, and I
Sure,
would say
go
that
ahead.
that's the
Sure,
last
Sean.
opportunity that they have for a corridor. It has been heavily impacted. I said that before. It's been degraded and impacted already. But we're talking about moving considerably, within 5 feet of it, reducing it to, to almost nothing. So, and I would disagree. You said it's like a single row of trees. It's considerably more than that. So.
Yeah.
So I do want to agree with a comment that Commissioner Bashant made, that I'm also disappointed that the plan itself hasn't changed, that retaining wall is still where it is. I was hopeful that I was going to get a new application with the retaining wall moved back 10, 20, 30 feet away from the wetland. Some kind of compromise was going to be reached and we could move forward, but I'm seeing no changes at all to the site plan. So far, all I'm hearing is, the soil scientist report. And Matt, I do have another question for you regarding your inventory of the vegetation. Are you familiar with the difference between the eastern cottonwood and the swamp cottonwood?
I am not.
All right, so in the town of Newington, we have discovered this swamp cottonwood. And it's apparently a protected species. And I know cottonwoods are very common along these types of wetlands. I want to make sure that you go back and take a look and make sure that there are no these swamp cottonwoods in this area. I keep hearing over and over that there are cottonwoods here. But I want to make sure that, we're not destroying the protected species. And again, I am going to echo the concerns of Commissioner Paskowitz and Commissioner Bashant regarding this terrestrial corridor that's being lost to wildlife. I do believe that they need that buffer area to transit between these wetlands. I'm sure that corridor is being used by wildlife.
Yes, just to.
All right, Commissioner Morris.
Briefly, in reviewing this new application, it struck me that on the last application, the biggest concern was the encroachment on the buffer area. And I was just surprised that I didn't see anything to mitigate the encroachment on the buffer. I would have think that a new application would have addressed that as a major point.
Thank you, Commissioner Morris. Commissioners online, any questions, comments so far regarding
Mr.
what?
Chairman.
Go ahead, Commissioner Siddell.
Yeah, and I echo some of the comments already made, but we can accentuate the negative here, Mr. Gustafson. I realize, but when even you're showing your own photos there at the beginning of your presentation, look at the canopy. That's what little I know with wetlands. Canopy is good, okay? And there's going to be none of that here. Basically, we're going to have maybe a few feet of grass and some bushes, and that's a dramatic change to what's there today. Would it not be? And that's what I greatly fear. You got to move a lot of material. You even say in your presentation, heavily sloped. You have to go in there with the Caterpillar tractors and dig out that dirt to make a foundation for a wall. I don't know how high it is these days, keeps changing, but I am concerned. Yes, connectivity is the word here, but it's going to look radically different to what it is today. We're not going to have any height or anything that shields. That's the one positive I see in that water course, is that we have exceptional canopying of the water course there. And that's going to be, if I look at your blueprint C1 and C1.1, it's basically going to be wiped out. Is that not true, Mr. Gustafson?
Commissioner, if I may finish the presentation to
Well, he
kind
asked me
of
before I
speak about a
question,
number
and
of
I
these
did.
things.
All right. Anything else, Commissioner Siddell?
I'm good.
Mr. Vasco would like to respond. Go ahead.
Very good. So there were some additional questions in previous meetings with regard to the impacts, specifically with, the height of the wall, fill associated with the wall, and other items associated. So to provide some clarification to this, if you look at this current plan, there's a section view in red that I've identified. So rather than a generic detail, which was originally provided, we've provided an actual detail that is specific to this site. This is the worst condition associated with it, meaning that the maximum height is 14 feet. This is an example of the worst case scenario in this case. And some of the items I would like to point out on this, which are significant, are the types of walls that we are examining for this have a very small foundation footprint because the wall itself is self-supporting. As the wall gets constructed, there's additional tiebacks that get installed to hold it up, so you do not need
Excuse
a
me,
mass.
sir, I can't see. If you're presenting, I can't see it. I'm sorry to interruption, but.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I can't
Hold on
see
one
what you're
second.
talking-
It's in red, but it's.
No,
It's
it's
on page C
the
two,
I'm presenting the wrong screen. Give me one moment. I apologize.
C2-2.
Let me go back one. I'm going to start that minor part one more time because I was unaware that I was not presenting the correct screen. Again, what is identified here on this plan, the red arrows identify the section view at the worst case scenario for the height of the wall. We originally provided a generic detail identifying how the wall would be installed, what is being proposed. So this is a view, all right, yes, and you can actually see the view. This is a view of the wall, and what I'd like to focus on with regard to this is the smaller foundation area. The way the walls we are examining to be installed here are self-supporting. So as the pieces of the wall get installed, there's supports that basically hold the wall in place. As a result of that, the foundation for this is actually rather small in relation to the wall size itself. The impacts at the front portion of the wall here are actually, we have it identified on the plan as 5 feet. This is actually less. I believe this is about 4 feet here as far as impacts associated with the wall installation. So the wetland limit, which is not the water course, that is the wetland itself, it still has this span associated with here, and we're looking at about 25 to 28 feet or so prior to disturbance, where we will not be impacting any of the vegetation in this area. The tree that is identified here is an approximate 20-foot high tree, which is a general mid-level size of a tree in this area. So the screening from the parking area from the price chopper will be, and again, this is not fully screened. It's basically what is available as far as screening existing in the corridor, which will remain. We are not removing any of the wetland or any of the corridor associated with the area that you traverse. Yes, we are filling portions of the upland review. The amount of fill, and again, this is the worst case scenario here. This is a small portion from a height perspective of how much the wall is going to impact. The average height of the wall is approximately 8 to 10 feet tall, but it will go all the way down to 0 on the edges of the wall. The highest point here identified, I go back in my plan, identified here is the 14 feet.
Is that profile picture in the?
Yes,
site
it's
plan?
provided in, yes, it's provided on, I know, sheet
C2
2, or I
point
can't remember exactly. I've provided additional clarification for the presentation with the trees and so on. I'm just, the section just identifies the wall and the wetland limit. And I can definitely provide additional information. The image is identified here. I do not have an exact calculation on the amount of fill material, Commissioner Bertrand. However, this is not all, it looks like it is a lot. It is the amount of slope that is being filled here is this tapers up and connects, and there is actually not a substantial amount of fill import for this area. It appears that it is.
When you
It is
stand on
not.
the site, it's a giant hole. You build the wall down there and you're gonna see this giant hole there. You're gonna have to fill. I'm just curious what the number is, but I'm sure it's in the hundreds of cubic yards, but I was thinking today it could be in the thousands of cubic yards.
I would not imagine it would be in the thousands of cubic
Go
yards.
look at it. Look at your lines. You're trying to get up to the parking lot level now. You're not gonna lower that parking lot, correct?
We are not lowering portions of the parking lot, no.
Chairman Zeller,
Go ahead, Commissioner Paskowitz.
I'd like to go back in history a little bit on this land and what was on that land prior.
All right, can you hold that until Mr. Vasco is done with the
Yes, sir.
information regarding the retaining wall? Okay.
Okay.
I've provided, obviously, these are not renderings of what this wall is going to ultimately look like, but I'm providing this as examples to highlight a couple of points. Those points being, this wall has been installed, and it was installed after the completed installation of the edge of the roadway. And I'm essentially highlighting here the fact that that it is possible for us to install a wall such as this and not impact anything that is directly in front of that, which I know was a concern from commissioners in the past. The photo on the left is a stepped wall, but what I'm identifying here is that some of the plantings and some of the proposed modifications that we have made in this application, we've discussed the live staking is to provide a way to essentially screen this. It's going to take a couple of years to finalize that end result with the amount of vegetation that is getting installed, but it is not going to wipe out the corridor, which is what I'm trying to clarify with this. As far as the edge of the wall, that is the disturbance area that is located along the edge of the wetland corridor, we will be installing erosion control seed mix. So this is a clarification of what, a finished look of the seed mix. Now, I want to specify, this is for temporary erosion control measures to ensure that we are not discharging any sediments or anything into the wetland in that case. This will germinate quickly following installation. And the next step after that is we are proposing what is called live staking. So rather than taking an actual plant from a pot and installing it specifically in any locations, there are various types of plants, willow, dogwood, that basically if you were to plant just a stick in the ground, it will begin to grow. Not every plant does that, but there is a known and very there's an efficient way in this case of reestablishing a habitat very quickly, very effectively by using this live staking method. So essentially, rather than planting the plants, all of these multiple stakes are staked into the ground along the front of that wall. And ultimately, after a first germination period, after about a year or so, you're going to essentially take all of these stakes, which are identified here in little black dots. All of these will germinate into herbaceous and woody material. And the intent behind this is to take that which Matt had identified earlier and the slopes and the large wood material associated with this corridor, which is not providing an adequate habitat. And we will be supplementing it with this additional planting to increase the beneficial habitat of this corridor. It doesn't exist now. It is essentially predominantly invasive species that are taking over the area and preventing the growth of beneficial habitat in this area. Yes, I recognize we are building a wall to install the parking area for this. However, we are also providing the benefit of this localized habitat by increasing or I should say, decreasing the pressure from these invasives by adding additional materials such as these plants, the erosion control mix, and other items, not to mention when the project is completed, we will have the stormwater system we are proposing is going to substantially reduce discharges, both water quality, heat, and water quantity to areas of this water course, which serves a vital role connecting those two wetlands that are the commission's main concern. So we are winning on both sides. You know, yes, we are trying to achieve this parking lot, but we have put a number of measures in place to substantially improve the habitat that's out there, as well as substantially benefit the larger macro ecosystem and habitat of the wetlands through the benefits of the water quality, through the benefits of the live staking. And yes, I admit our initial design did not have any of these measures in it. So we have made sure to incorporate this into our design to support the disturbances that we are creating as a result of this. Thank you. I appreciate you allowing me to finish, but yes, I by all means will try to answer as many questions as I can.
Commissioner Paskowitz, you had comment?
Yes. I'm curious as to why we're improving the structural stability of a parking lot that had already been maintained as a Mortenson's restaurant and a Shell gas station on the same property, on the same soils that were there. Why are we trying to improve what was there when there was already weight on that area?
I'm not sure I understand your question, Commissioner.
Well, we had a Mortenson dairy, a Mortenson restaurant on that property, and we had
Yes.
a Shell gas station.
Yes.
Which structurally impacts soils and stability of foundations for both facilities on the same soils.
Right.
So why is it that we're looking at improving what is there when it's already established?
What to clarify what I mean by what we're improving is we are improving the water quality and the treatment of the flows that are exiting the site right now. Let
me stop you right there. Why are we concerned about that at all? When it has nothing to do with the parking lot. It's a parking lot to put cars on. I don't understand why we're going forward like this for stability beyond what's already there.
I might be able to answer.
I'm sorry.
Alan, maybe this will help. They're trying to utilize more of the footprint of the property, but the topography doesn't allow for it now. In the past, they worked with they coexisted with the topography that was there. Now they have to do a massive filling operation to push that level footprint out. So they have, an extra row of parking. So
the slopes
that's a good question. So is the topography of the land square footage larger than what was typically used for the Mortensen property and the Shell gas station? That's my question.
The size of what is being proposed, and so at the age at which the gas station and the Mortensons, which I'm both familiar with both of those properties, at the time my understanding based on the photos that I've seen and the research that I've done associated with the planning and zoning submission for this is that there were very little, if any, trees or vegetation along this slope, and these are all have grown in the last 70 years or so. The cottonwoods are rather large. I don't know what type of cottonwood they are. That we were looking at some that were in the 15 to 20 caliber range.
So I don't want to jump in, but I'm going to. So why do we have to impose anything further than that was already a fact of matter on that land? Are we building a parking lot beyond the means of the two facilities that were there, the Mortensons and the Shell station?
I don't know the exact space or sizing of the original Mortensons. I do know that the majority of the entire area was paved. I don't know what the slopes of that area were. The requirements that we have as far as the standards for accessibility and the standards for parking associated with this lot, we cannot park on a 9% slope or whatever the transition slope down towards the wetland area is, in addition to expanding the parking to prevent the need for any of the hazardous situations that occurred in the past associated with the parking. So we are proposing the wall as a means to increase the parking to satisfy the parking requirements for this successful restaurant, while at the same time satisfying the requirements of the commission and satisfying the requirements of, the localized habitat through water quality management and through the inclusion of the landscaping and habitat improvements that we are proposing as a result of this design. I'm not sure I'm answering your question correctly, Commissioner,
Well,
but
you're doing your best to try to satisfy what I'm asking. It's just that I'm just interested to know if the structural capacity of the soils there in the parking lot that's being proposed are acceptable enough for what it is and not have to do anything beyond that. That's what I'm looking. I'm not an engineer. I'm not looking at it as an engineer beyond the Conservation Commission. It just seems that we're going so far forward in making this more of an engineering project than just what it is as it is from what it was as a place where Mortenson's and the Shell station was. So that's my only interest. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm going to follow up on Commissioner Paskowitz's comments. This was kind of a concern that was raised with the prior application that the commission doesn't have any problem with, the proposed use of a parking lot. It's the expansion beyond the current edge of slope, which creates the issue. It removes devegetizes everything. You're deforesting the entire slope. You're expanding, towards the wetlands. You're building a retaining wall, and you don't even know how much fill is going to be required. And again, if this stayed within the footprint of the current edge of slope, I don't think there would be any issues here. And as Commissioner Paskowitz pointed out, this becomes, an engineering exercise, but with significant impact. So that's the issue that we have.
Thank you for expanding on my conversation, Chairman Zilla.
You're quite welcome.
I threw the survey back up here. There isn't necessarily a defined edge of slope. There is a turn point approximately at this location here. We have only expanded beyond that existing turn point by, if I understand correctly, I believe it's at the most, we've expanded beyond probably, I'd say, about 18 feet. But the total, when you're looking at the amount of fill for that 18 feet, again, it's triangular. It's not a full rectangle. So and that edge of slope is kind of a misnomer, because if you go back to look at the original survey, this slope is continuing down. So it starts essentially at the center of the existing parking area and continues to slope back. And in fact, the existing parking area for Casa d'Oro is that parking lot is substantially steeper than a standard parking lot layout typically would be. In this case, we have increased some areas of the parking for the proposed area, but that's entirely to get this water to basically slope to the center to utilize the water quality design we are proposing, which is the rain garden bioretention. The difference in elevation to keep the slope faced in one direction versus pitching it is only a change in elevation of approximately 18 inches. So in that regard, it was better for us to design and push everything to the center to have one water treatment area as opposed to splitting up and having multiple water treatment areas.
If I may, what were you referring to is only 18 feet from a turn?
The additional, so if we're counting the top of slope, the turn point is where we have a transition here from like a shallower slope to a steep slope. That occurs approximately at this transition point where my cursor is identified. Can you see my cursor?
I can't, but
Here, this is what I can do. I can draw this line right here. Approximately in that regard. The additional 18 feet is, so if we were to identify this line as approximately that slope line, we are expanding beyond that in that regard. So essentially, if a parking space is 18, well, actually, I'm sorry, these are 16-foot spaces because we're utilizing the regulations. So in this case, with a 16-foot space plus the distance for the wall, again, that's approximately 16 to 18 feet of, if you took your angle point going down your slope, you're extending that out about 16 to 18 feet, not 40 feet. And it looks much larger, but when you're accounting for the transition slope down, the major fill piece is only 16 to 18 feet. And I will also clarify that this proximate portion right here, that is the section of the wall that's about 14 feet high. As you transition up in this direction, because the way the slope transitions, the wall keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller down to, I believe we have, I lost my cursor.
I mean, the topo lines look like they increase as you go further north, so.
The topo lines increase, but that's good because the wall stays the same height. So as the topo lines increase, the wall gets smaller.
I don't follow that reasoning. It's the same slope, it's the same steepness there. The topo lines are the same.
But the topo lines are skewed out away from the wall. So as the topo lines increase, the wall gets smaller because the topo lines go from, if you're going 115, 116, 117, well, your wall is still staying at the finished elevation. So the wall itself gets smaller as you get close, as you move east.
Well, at the end, it's still at least 10 feet tall, correct? I'm looking right at it. Looks like it's going to be 10 or 12 feet tall.
Approximately, on average, the average height is approximately 10 feet on the back side of the wall, yes.
What's the highest point?
The highest point of the wall is 14 feet, and it's 14 feet, and it's identified in the location where we have that's identified where we have the location of the cross section. So again, disregard the foundation because that's not visible. So essentially when you measure from here to the top of your wall, it's approximately 14 feet. And again, if you have a tree that's a standard height mid-level tree at 20 feet, that's a standard size mid-level tree in this case. And then, so all of this, keep losing my cursor, all of this area in that disturbed portion is where we are first establishing with the erosion control mix, and then subsequently, in addition to the erosion control mix, we're doing the live staking. So this will begin, let me draw. This will be where over, the first year or so is when you're going to start getting that woody vegetation to reestablish in those disturbed areas at the front of the wall. And that's essentially the area where we will be, rehabitating this area, maintaining the wetland corridor, which is over here. But we will be in that small pinch point area. Well, not just in the pinch point area, but in the entire length of the wall, we will be reestablishing the vegetation and the habitat associated with these more native plants for this type of wetland habitat that will be used by the wildlife and so on, and the habitat in this area.
It just seems like so much drama, and I would even say trauma, for one row of parking. I mean, I was there today. I could see the snow tracks that have been there for 4 days. And I could see that there was some use of the overflow, about 10 cars parked in there. I could see it clearly. They pulled in, parked there. It was probably on Saturday night. There was no overflow today. A few employees are parking there on the west side. And I was there on Sunday myself having lunch, and same thing. There was no need for any overflow parking there. So the amount of parking that's there now is, I don't see it being stressed out. So I don't know what happens on a Saturday night, but this is the time of year when they're having Christmas parties and office parties and things like that. So it seems like so much sacrifice of that buffer for one row of parking, which is essentially what it is.
And again, I'm going to just reiterate, this looks to me almost exactly the same plan that we looked at previously, and we still have the same concerns. So I don't feel as though any significant effort has been made to address those concerns.
Mr. Commissioner, Mr. Chairman, if I may at some point,
Go ahead, Commissioner Siddell.
So getting back to one last time for the wall, it's got to be 14 feet where you have your red arrows in order for the top of the wall to be level. Is that a true statement? It's not going to be sloped down when you look at it. It's going to be a monocot height with one end on the right being a little bit not as tall, but when you get to that curve, it's going to be taller in order to maintain an even height of the top of the wall. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. I understand your question now, Commissioner Siddell. Yes.
All right. And how tall these live stakings? How tall can they grow?
They're trees. They're willow trees. So ultimately, it's what the willow tree. So instead of planting an oak tree, you're taking willows and dogwoods happen to be the types of vegetation that when you plant a live stake, it will germinate on its own. So you are essentially planting a row, well, not even a row, an array of willow trees. So it will grow to be the same. It will be a willow tree. We're planting a number of them. Yes, there will be the likelihood that some will not survive, but there will be a high likelihood that some will survive and will ultimately grow into full willow trees.
And what's that height of an average willow tree?
Yeah, so this is Matt Gustafson speaking now. Between the two species, willow has several different types. There are shrubby willows, and there are more, as Mr. Ross already had mentioned, there are more tree-sized willows. Tree willows would be more of the black willow, which is our native willow. You're also probably familiar with like the weeping willow, which would be less suitable for a location like this. We also have shrub willows. Again, the pussy willow, bed willow, things of that nature. Dogwoods, while they do have some tree variants that are found in a wetland scenario, they're largely shrubby dogwoods, things like silky dogwood, red osier dogwood, gray dogwood, things of that nature. These shrubs can grow anywhere from 10 to 15 feet, probably topping out closer to 16. The trees, as was already pointed out, will be, they're full size trees. Willows can grow to the site conditions, topping out at 90 plus feet. Though in this type of resource, you wouldn't expect them to reach full maturity to that size, but they're still full size mature trees.
Okay. So would they would be in that sketch that was there earlier, you're gonna plant them at the base. Hopefully the roots don't upset the wall, but anyway, is that what's gonna be that pinch point gonna look like when you have that, yeah, in that pinch point where you have your tree? It's not really gonna look, is it gonna look like that between, you've got your vertical line between the wetland limit and then the wall? Is that what that typically will look like? Is that
So-
just a schematic or just?
Yeah, this is just, an illustration. What the intent is to revegetate this area. Understand the commission's kind of sensitivity to shading. I would point out that there are many high value wetlands that have no trees. All your emergent wet meadow wetlands, many of your highest quality wetlands do not have any trees associated with them. So while shading is an important characteristic of some wetlands, we have to understand the function that the shading provides, which is cooling largely. The same vegetation that we are proposing will provide the other functions that are highly sought after when you're talking about a buffer to wetlands, which is the ability for vegetation to retain soils, stabilize the soils, uptake nutrients, uptake pathogens, and filter out any of the stormwater going through here. The vegetation we're proposing and that we're retaining is going to perform that same function at a much higher capacity than the existing vegetation will be able to do. And again, that the shading effect that is commonly, it's,
Can you mute now?
Somebody needs to go on mute. Please continue, Mr. Gustafson.
sorry. The shading effect largely is it's they're two kind of key components of shading, and one being habitat structure and the other being cooling of the receiving wetland or stream in this case. Again, while shading is important, this stream is already the temperature of the stream because of the stormwater inputs is already a kind of a moot point. It's a warm water stream. The shading is not really providing significant cooling to change that point, that fact. The second being habitat structure. Again, we've talked about, we are kind of re-enhancing the habitat in this area. So while it is a different structure in a more shrubby emergent vegetation, it is nonetheless still an important wildlife component, just a different strata. Instead of talking about trees, we're talking about shrubs and emergent vegetation, but still provides the same function that species are going to be keying into for that would be using this area. Again, this area is already fragmented. I can understand that there is some connectivity between the wetlands in here, but the use of a wetland like this by wildlife, a general wildlife discussion, is what species are comfortable using this type of habitat. And the type of species that are comfortable using this habitat are conditioned to impacts to human influence. So the addition of a retaining wall in this area, while still close to the wetland, is not going to impede, in my personal opinion. But that's my job. That's what I've went to school for. That's what I've done for the last 15 years, is assess habitat, and certainly take into account how wildlife moves over a landscape. In my opinion, based on how this habitat has already been fragmented and impacted, this proposed application is not going to significantly alter that. Is there going to be some impact to it? Of course, we're proposing a retaining wall. We're proposing impacts to the buffer. But through our mitigation and through our enhancements that we're proposing, we are offsetting some of those impacts and retaining the ability for wildlife, those generalist species that are accustomed to these types of areas, to still use this corridor as they would prior to this application. And again, that's a highly limited function because of the aforementioned impacts to this resource.
Question, two more questions. One, okay, I get it. but can an invasive still penetrate the system that you're proposing? Can, the invasives all over the place. Could an invasive still penetrate this buffer you're trying to create?
Again, this is Matt Gustafson. Yeah, at the end of the day, the invasives have gained a foothold in worldwide because they are not native to the system. So they always have the ability to reestablish, especially in a case like this where the nexus for those species are readily present. You have parking areas where seed can come in. You have birds bringing in. There's always going to be a nexus for those species to be able to reintroduce. The one benefit that we have with what we're proposing is that these plantings are going to be densely stocked, meaning that they're going to take up most of the growing space. A lot of the times when you disturb new areas, the biggest potential nexus for reintroducing invasives is not occupying that growing space, essentially leaving bare soil or areas that aren't already being taken up by vegetation for them to come in and take a foothold and then start out competing. By our proposed mitigation, the enhancement plan that we're proposing with the live staking and the seeding, we're giving those things the head start to hopefully outcompete the eventual introduction of invasives in this area.
All right, final question. How big is this choke point, Mr. Vaca? We've got it set here. Is this on your x-axis there? How wide is this choke point between edge of wetland and the wall? How wide is that going to be?
The choke point identified here between the limit of the wall and the wetland limit here is this is my 15-foot station, so we're probably at elevate 16, and then my wall edge is about I'd say 28. So in this case, you're looking at this pinch point probably 12 feet, but that is the narrowest point identified here. Everything else substantially pulls away from the wetland area, which is why I identified this as the section. So that 12 feet here, whereas your, for example, on the south portion of the wall here, you're probably looking at 40 to 50 feet. And on the east portion, you're looking at approximately, in fact, I think I have a measurement in there. That's 18 feet identified there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so wherever I see yellow, that's where this is going to be vegetated as you, Mr. Gustafson, has proposed.
Yeah, so just the yellow identifies the wall itself. In fact, I'll go back over to this plan, which will identify that. So the wall is located here in gray, and this green is going to be that area of vegetation. And again, to add on to what Matt was saying, it's that is the area of disturbance that we are planting. But again, similar to the invasives encroaching into that area, the live staking also have the ability, because of just how that germinates and so on, has those areas, and the seeding has the ability to encroach into the adjacent areas as well. In other words, we will expand that. The hope is once these areas germinate, we will reestablish this habitat as a much more beneficial habitat for this area through this reintroduction of these plants. And it will continue as these plants continue to grow and to expand, that this will continue to expand out to relieve the pressure from some of the adjacent invasives.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Anderson.
Commissioner Anderson, can you go back to the detail with the stations, please?
Yes.
So, I mean, just for my clarification, at which station point now would the current buffer start at? Just so we can kind of get a visual of, by the station, how much of that buffer we'd be losing.
Right now, it is okay. So it has essentially been cleared up to the essential edge of that drop-off point. That drop-off point on this plan essentially is probably this transition area right here, where you can see that there's a slight change in that slope. So I'd say in total, at the maximum, will be losing, so this is 45 down to 28,
So about 17
So-
feet.
right, approximately.
Okay.
What's that, 50%? 50% loss.
In that particular location, that's the thing. It changes throughout the entire area because it's, for example, the buffer along the south side is essentially, we are only probably expanding about, I'd say, 2 or 3 feet beyond the existing clearing limit at this point. The clearing limits that I identified on this original plan are historic based on the changes that happened as a result of the temporary parking. So the clearing limit itself is pushed much farther back.
I'm sorry, what are you saying? The existing cleared area now, you're saying you're only going 2 feet further than that?
It's like on the south portion, so the south side of that, exactly. Not in all areas, no. Not in all areas, no.
So I guess,
That's a long way to go on the east side.
so my follow-up
You can see the
question.
size of the trees there, sorry.
So we're gonna be, losing that 17 feet of buffer. And I'm gonna go to your wetland scientist over here. Since most of that is steep slope, how much that would actually be truly used as a corridor versus what's gonna be remaining of that buffer?
Yeah, that's, and I apologize, I may have convoluted the discussion, but that's what I was getting at in our original kind of when the presentation, we had those in mid-presentation questions, is that, the species that are using this are really using the bottom. They're not going to, certainly they could do, again, wildlife is such a general term. Are we talking about birds? Are we talking about deer? Are we talking about more specialized species? Certainly your terrestrial species are going to be using all of that because to Commissioner Bashan's point already, the slopes are so steep already that it makes it challenging for a majority of wildlife to be really using this as a corridor. That's when we were talking about some of the large mammals. They're because of the fragmented nature of this resource, it's not really suitable as a wildlife corridor for those large mammals. They're going to have to crossing roads. They're not making it under these box culverts or the traditional culverts on either side. Certainly things like your small mammals, that 17 feet, while there is some loss of that habitat, doesn't really change the ability for those species to utilize this as a corridor. We're still maintaining enough of the corridor, enhancing enough of that bottom of the corridor for those small mammals or those other generalist wildlife species to still utilize the remaining corridor to get between the higher value wetlands that we've already talked about. We mentioned this in the context of a landscape. The wildlife species that are most sensitive and most heavily impacted by development are not using this particular wetland, this particular small block of habitat. They are using those wetlands to either side, and many of them, this wetland is not providing connectivity between them. The mere fact that it's already been isolated precludes them from being able to move through this area. Be the substantial roads, whether it's Lewis Street or the Berlin Turnpike, is enough of a detriment for them to turn around and not even consider this area. The aquatic species, like I said, those species will they're depending on what they're doing. Juveniles may disperse through that area, but again, we're not impacting the aquatic resource here. We are maintaining the wetland itself, so those species will be able to continue to use that largely uninterrupted. So hopefully that is a long-winded answer of that 17 feet. While for any of the Patriots fans in here, like Mike Variable, while it's important, it's not significant.
If I may just add one point to that, is some of the steepest areas, or I should say the tallest areas of the wall are associated with the steepest areas of the slope. Therefore, those areas are, I want to use the term unusable, but it is impractical for them for use of anything already. And the inclusion of the wall is not changing the current use of those specific sections.
So there's a lot of talk about shading and loss of shading to this resource. The species that are using this, again, are adapted to to not having the significant cover. Shading is usually in context of the size of the buffer. And when we're talking about the loss of 17 feet in here, when the entire buffer is maybe 3 times that, while it may seem in perspective of losing, like I said, 50% of that buffer, because the species that are using it don't, as long as the buffer still occurs at all, they're still able to use it. Again, highly specialized, not even highly, non-generalist species would be sensitive to this type of encroachment. But the species, because of the fragmented nature of this habitat, the species that are utilizing this are largely not going to care about losing 17 feet. Now, maybe the squirrel that's in that one tree may care. He loses his nest that year if that's where his tree is, his nest is. But again, the ability of this resource to be a connectivity feature between the 2 or high quality wetlands on either side will largely remain intact.
Anything else from commissioners? So I think we should probably table this. We do have another application that we have to hear this evening, and it is past 9 o'clock. Takeaways for the applicant.
I would just say that the fact that there's no compromise on that row of parking, and they alluded to it earlier themselves, that this is a future pad site or a historic pad site. I'm wondering, and I don't expect you to have the answer to this, but how important that future development of this is. And this is too much work to go through just for overflow parking for a restaurant that already has, like, from my own observation, enough parking. So, it seems like that's maybe the primary focus here. It did allude to it, so I'm not saying that you are keeping that from us, but I would just wondering if it seems to be possibly the larger goal here, because otherwise we're hashing over this over one row of parking.
Are we saying that the purpose of this is not for parking, that ultimately it's for some other development?
I'm just saying that they alluded to that themselves in the beginning of this application. Am I correct? I don't want to put words in your mouth. I think you did allude to that at some point, that it could be used as that future pad site.
If I can clarify whatever statements made, it is the developer is keeping his options open. So in other words, we are proposing and are requesting the extension of the parking, and that is the main goal of this. But the developer would like to keep his options open as far as, this is a viable site that could be at any time in the future could be used for something. And we do not want to remove any of those.
Yeah, I appreciate
potential
the honesty
options.
about that. And you did come out with that pretty early on. So I'm just wondering if that is maybe an underlying influence, maybe below the surface here that we're not discussing. So.
And in that same vein of compromise or offering, and there may not be a direct answer to this, but the need for the development of these areas is additional mitigation. Would that provide some alleviation of concerns and further enhancing this wetland while still maintaining this footprint? Would that provide any sort of relief for any of the concerns that have been brought up tonight?
In my opinion, no. Pulling the retaining wall away from the wetland seems to be the most viable solution today.
And if you could go to you had a picture of the sample retaining walls.
Oh, yes.
So the one on the right there, I mean, that's what it's kind of a typical retaining wall, where the retaining wall's down here and the land slopes up to it. Yours is going to be the opposite of that. Your wall has to come up above the grade of the parking lot to retain the parking lot, obviously. So if you used a wall like this, then you would obviously have to pull everything back, but you'd have a much smaller wall, that's for sure. And you'd have, and you could get, or if you made a wall that was flush with the parking lot, just pulled back further.
Well, just to clarify,
You'd be less of an encroachment.
just so we're clear for the record, the wall, Just so we're clear for the record, the wall is the height of the parking. It is not extended beyond that.
No, but you're gonna be parking right up to it, so you're gonna have to, the picture that you showed there is nothing like what your wall's gonna look, in other words.
That statement is correct, but the wall itself is not higher than the parking.
Has to be, higher than, just so that you could retain a tire or you're gonna have a wall, some kind of a fence or a post or a guardrail.
Well, the guardrail is identified. That's what that icon represents. So the wall is designed, and it is designed to be able to accommodate a guardrail to ensure that no one does drive off it. But the wall itself is the height of the
You'll
parking.
literally be parking right up to that guard, bumper to guardrail. Essentially.
The spacing of this is designed to allow for the 3-foot overhang for the vehicle. So it will, they're not going to be banging into the bumper, but the bumper is intended so that no one does drive off the end. Yes.
Yeah, it's very inside. But when you look at the expansion of the parking, it really looks like it's double the parking lot. And you can't see an overflow to the particular restaurant at this time that requires twice as much parking. More parking, sure. I'm sure on good days there's overflow. It seems like overkill.
Just to clarify that statement, part of the reason why it is currently appears the way it is the current owner is renting space in the Price Chopper lot for the employees. So the intent behind this is to not only park the additional demand, but also to park the current employees that are currently parked in the Price Chopper lot. And on peak days, Friday night, Saturday, there could be as many as 50 employees. We would love for them to carpool, but there is no way that can be put in any type of requirement. So there is the potential for 50 cars solely for employees, which are currently being parked in the Price Chopper lot and the pad site associated with the Price Chopper lot as a negotiation. That is, it's a monthly lease in my understanding, but the owner would ideally like to get those cars onto his own property.
All right. Anything else, gentlemen? All right. Can we get a motion to table this to the next meeting? Motion made by Commissioner Morris, second by Commissioner Bouchant. Any discussion before we go to vote? Okay, all in favor of tabling this, say aye. Aye.
Right.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion to table passes unanimously. Good night.
Thank you, Commissioner.
All right, we've been at it for 2 hours and 20 minutes. Anybody want to take a break for 5?
Sure. I just told them to go for me.
All right, I'm gonna call recess for 5 minutes.
I didn't know we were back to Monday. I think it's all still.
Thank you. You as well. Take off. All right. We'll see.
Good, yeah. I'm trying to bring up your PowerPoint.
As fast as possible for you, more paper and great. Hopefully this one will be a little bit easier.
I hope so.
It's a lot less complicated, I promise. No wall.
No map amendment?
No map amendment,
All
no
right.
walls, no impacts.
This is.
Reclamation, why we're here. Just kidding.
Wish I had a better answer for you.
Have you,
I really need a bigger screen. This is just too small for all of this. What's that?
I was gonna ask you. Everything was going with, Tucker Jones there.
Last time I had a conversation with them, that had to do with, they had to come back to us with a revised site plan.
Yep.
And we revised, we reviewed and approved it, and then they were probably held up by weather. That would be my guess, because they started work again. I mean, I come up that way from home to go to work a lot of times. And they were working for a few weeks.
Yeah.
Began to get their foundation in, and then it went silent again. Now, my experience is a lot of times developers do not contact us when things go dormant.
Yeah.
Just kind of when they get ready to come back on track, they come back on track.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it was like really intense, like, let's get this done, get this done, get this done, get this approved, and then all of a sudden it was like silence.
Yeah. I'm trying to get your presentation up, and I'm having some difficulty with this. It doesn't want to display it in a shared screen, so I'm gonna have to try closing.
I
my
told
shared
my wife
screen.
this is gonna be a long one. As soon as I saw the amount back on the thing.
Yeah.
It's a pain in the ass.
She's like,
Come on.
she's like, are you kidding me? She can't, so when I did this in Plainville, I was using.
So here's your presentation. This should be easy.
Since I've been doing it here, if I'm home in under 2 hours, he's shocked.
All right.
Hit share.
Yeah.
Let's pull that back up.
This one or this one?
You're on the board at the Y up in Hartford, right?
Oh, it was, yeah.
Okay, you're not anymore?
No.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Thank you.
Gotcha.
Downtown. The swimming instructor.
Okay.
That is an interesting one.
The funny thing is, what I end up
I
looking
haven't
at here is
been
different from what you guys see.
I haven't been there, but.
Oh, you should go.
That's why I got the.
The problem with that place, though,
At
is
least
no
know
parking.
it.
Well, that's what she
No
said.
parking.
That's what she was saying. Well, it's right next to the old CBS building, right? Next to the Phoenix?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You go down one flight.
The empty lot. That's right there.
I tried to turn it back on.
That's where CBS is.
You might say that he was.
He probably will. I'm sure.
Building.
It was already.
Yeah, they've been saying that for 30 years. Since CBS moved to Rockville.
Yeah, that's it.
The
footprint is still
Yeah, so she started working there.
Very minimal.
And I.
Just a little bigger here.
So what time of day did you do that?
So messed up over there.
Morning?
We took the train down.
Completely.
My wife went on.
She
holiday.
worked
My wife and daughter went to a show at the Rockets
Sunday,
or whatever.
Saturday?
Yeah.
It was supposed to be around.
They drove to Greenwich. Where do you
Everything was
park when
ready.
you take the train?
We went down to Haven.
Oh,
So
yeah.
she's
Twice
like,
a month. That's a lot longer.
Train.
train.
It's a longer train ride, but it's more convenient.
We don't know we have three.
The
I
drive
was
to Greenwich
surprised.
can be sketchy on 95.
All I can tell you.
And
I
also.
got discussed with the board.
They went on 84.
the higher
actually. At some point, you gotta get back on one of those two.
Like $1 million.
Were you-
And then boom, just below that.
Were you on it when Evar was on it? Evar Stowers?
Yes.
Big tall goofy dude?
Yeah.
What was it? A
I used
madhouse?
to work right next to him.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Not for us.
My
No?
first,
No, in the park was nothing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
6 years?
The north end of the park is
Him and I
usually a
were
little bit quieter
right
anyway.
side by side, like.
So, yeah.
That park is always amazing.
But I knew he was on the board, but I couldn't remember if it
First
was
time
that,
I
like
saw
the
that.
downtown.
He was on both.
Yeah.
They-
Jeff.
Ready?
Yeah.
All right.
Where's Tim?
We can ready? All right, we're returning from recess, reconvene the meeting. We're gonna move on to, second item in new business application, IW 25 19. To construct an addition within the URA Upland Review Area at 40 Commerce Court in the I Industrial Zone. Applicant TDS Engineering and Construction Incorporated. Contact Bill Jodis, owner ATD Realty LLC. Application received 11/12/25. If the applicant is present, they come to the mic, state their name, and give us their presentation on this application.
Hey, my name is Bill Jodis. I'm with PDS Engineering and Construction, and we are presenting on application IW 25 19. And I'm representing Matt Pensiero, Bill Murphy, and attention to detail for this wetlands application. And PDS is the engineer of record on this project. As we applied for and received a special use permit through planning and zoning last May. And so now we're back here applying for a wetlands application permit. Brian Panico is here with me from Cole Surveying, and he'll review the site plans with you to show you that they meet all the wetlands requirements for this property. So with that, I'd like to introduce Brian.
Again, for the record, Brian Panico with Cole Civil and Survey, 876 South Main Street in Plantsville. So this property is 40 Commerce Court. It's 4.23 acres. It's a industrial zone, formerly the Progressive Insurance Building. Site is serviced by water sewer, already has an on-site stormwater system. So again, this site is basically fully built out, entirely constructed. It has a functioning stormwater management system. All the utilities are in place, parking lots, driveways, everything. There is 0.8 acres of wetlands on the site. Because of, if you look at the screen, the orange dashed line represents, or look at your handouts, that represents the wetland boundary. And some of that wetland is the natural occurring wetland that has always been there. You'll notice like some of the pockets and some of the fingers, those are likely historic from the stormwater system that was designed. So you can see the one to the south is in fact the stormwater basin, which treats all the stormwater before it goes back underground to the west into that larger portion of wetland, which has the power lines and the power company easement over it. There's also a conservation easement over that area. And again, that because of the kind of surrounding nature of the wetland, that puts just about the entire site, 1.85 acres of the site, up as upland review area, which is demonstrated by the darker blue dash line that kind of runs throughout on these plans. If we flip to the second page in your packet or the next slide, this is our proposed site plan. You may notice that it doesn't look very much different than what you had seen as the existing building. That's because what we are proposing is the overhang on the what would be the southwest side in these pictures, or on the front left of the building. That is currently a canopy, proposing that actually just basically be enclosed, expanded slightly in the parking lot area behind the building for additional store space. So all of our disturbance from a building and perspective and an addition perspective is basically already in disturbed area and already in parking lot area. So again, the existing canopy that exists on the front left of the building, there are two, one on the left, one on the right. The one on the left will be enclosed and become part of the building for storefront space. The one on the right will remain as is. There's also an existing overhang with spaces on the back side of the building behind what is proposed as the new addition. That canopy will also be removed and allow for overhead doors to get more vehicles in and out for operational purposes. To make the kind of circulation around the building work and function better and safer, we are proposing to expand the parking lot by 6 feet along the side of the addition. And that is basically the extent of our disturbance to non already paved area. That totals 0.016 acres. So it is, again, 6 feet wide by about give or take 120, 130 feet long. That's grass. It will be replaced with pavement. To mitigate for that, we are proposing to remove some of the excess spaces that are not needed. And we chose to do that in the northeast corner of the parking lot, closest to that other finger of wetland. So that will all be restored back to grass and just provide a little bit more green space between the parking lot and the wetland area. Again, very, very minimal. The last page in the packet and the last page in the slideshow just kind of shows you a breakdown of the floor plans for the building. And so you can see kind of bottom of screen here, that is the area of the canopy that is being converted into enclosed store space. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, it's about 8 feet of additional building off of that.
Yes.
So the actual building will be about 8 feet deeper than what the canopy is. But other than that, basically the footprint of the building stays the same. The layout of the parking lot stays the same.
Saying that 8 feet would be inside the building?
Just beyond the, go up one, yep, so
You said 8 feet larger than the canopy.
8 feet larger than the canopy, yep.
Exterior?
Over the parking lot. So we're gonna remove parking lot, increase the depth of the building by 8 feet on that, depth of the canopy by 8 feet, and that becomes the addition.
Okay. You said the addition was the size of the canopy.
It's 8 feet deeper, but basically the same footprint, just 8 feet larger than the canopy. So if the canopy is, you know, what the exact dimensions are.
You say larger, just in one dimension, out.
You're going in the north direction.
Oh,
Correct.
okay, I see.
So the
Not coming out
canopy is
East
about,
Walker, just
the
back.
canopy is about 40 by 72, 74, and the new addition will be 40 by 81. So that would be the extent of the addition and the change.
If you can see up on the screen, I'm circling it with the cursor.
Yeah, I see it now. And the space you're turning back to green is equivalent to what you're taking in the parking lot.
Correct.
What
It's
you're
it's
taking
slightly
in the
larger.
yard, expanding the driveway.
Correct. It's slightly larger so that we have slightly less impervious surface on the site than we did before.
45 or so square feet.
Yep.
Chris, is Alan back online? Just want to make sure.
Well, he's still logged on, but he's still muted. But he's muted on his end. I've requested him to unmute, so if he's not, it's his choice.
And are you saying store, when you said storage or storefront, or what are you saying?
I believe the intent is for that to be kind of like
This
storefront
is,
space.
The space is gonna be at their tech zone area, for the calibration of the sensors.
So there's a new tenant in there?
It's part of their facility.
It's still progressive?
Yes.
Oh,
No, part of attention to detail.
So
okay.
Yeah.
previous building was
So it's an
progressive. It's
auto
now.
detailing business?
No, they don't do detailing, but they do adjusting of sensors and safety controls of the vehicles.
And that's gonna have garage bays on that addition?
Yes.
Correct.
So
Not gonna be a wash bay there or anything?
there's one in the back of the building, or was a Progressive originally had a wash bay there years ago, and we're repurposing that as a wash bay again. It's got a floor drain in it. It's going to be piped through the floor slab out into an oil water separator for discharges.
That almost sounds like something that would have to go through this commission, or is that part of this application, or?
Yes.
Oh, it is.
The oil and grit separator is an MDC function. It is not subject to us
Are we
and or planning.
repurposing the wash bay?
To provide for the utility is an MDC
I
function,
understand that.
right? So they had to add a tank as part of the property. That's not in this plan set, but I've
Mhm.
seen it as the plan review in the office for the building permit.
It's a very low use wash bay, just one car at a time. We're just gonna wipe cars down. With wet rags and garden hose. It's not a traditional car wash.
But even with that, they can't discharge that directly to the MDC sewer without going through the oil grit separator.
And that does not go to the storm sewers either. That goes to
Sanitary.
sanitary sewers.
Okay, good.
Yep.
And that was used for automotive use, wasn't it, at one time, the facility when it was Progressive?
Correct. That was their repair facility, correct?
No, they just.
Or rental
they
or
did
what?
inspections there
Inspections.
of damaged cars.
Yeah, I worked on that building once. I can't remember. I remember inside that it was.
The new use is very similar to Progressive use before.
And how many bays are going in that addition? Roughly. Enough room
There are
for,
6 with there are 6 doored bays.
The addition would be 2 beds.
The
Bays just
addition,
in the
the addition
addition?
is 2.
Oh, the addition is 2. Yes.
Commissioners, questions, concerns?
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Sure, Commissioner Siddle.
Sure. Quick question. In the packet, do we have a photo where you're gonna put those parking spaces in? You showed in that other figure, we had the purple line and the orange line. You're saying where you're taking that canopy right there, right? On the left side there, we're gonna remove the grass and we could put some parking in front of that right there, right?
It's not parking, it's drive aisle.
Just expanding the drive aisle by 6 feet so that it's a
Okay.
little more functional for two-way traffic.
Gotcha.
And then
Is that the gray in there?
that's the gray in there. And then in the kind of little box, the 4 parking spaces shown there, it's called out as the 680 square feet of pavement to be removed. That
Okay.
amount of pavement is slightly less than or slightly larger than the amount of impervious surface we'd be creating.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so I didn't understand the gray. I just thought that was parking lot. Okay, so it's that gray shaded sliver there. Okay.
Correct.
Now the orange line, once again, excuse me, you said this, the orange line and the purple line.
Yep, so the orange line is the limit of the wetlands. The line just behind that is the edge of the existing conservation easement.
Gotcha.
And then the kind of blue line is that goes through the building and through all the parking lot. That
Gotcha,
is
that's
the
a 100
upland
foot
review.
buffer. That's what I
Yep.
got. I got it. So
Correct.
we talk about these separators and all, where are they on how does that work on the facility?
So the oil grit separator is located just behind the new addition or where the canopy was behind the new addition. All of the floor drains connect to that. And that basically just allows for the settlement of the oil to rise to the surface and ideally the water to simply go into the sanitary sewer system. And then that gets regularly maintained. So there's none of this runoff water from any of the cars and anything happening inside of the building, basically getting out of the building. It all goes to the drains, and none of that water is then allowed to go to the storm system or run off site anywhere. It all has to go into the sanitary sewer system, which is why it is part of the MDC's kind of purview to go through all of that as well.
Okay, thank you. I'm good.
I had a question. There won't be floor drain. I don't think they allow floor drains anymore in garage bays, do they? If there are, I was just wondering if those will also be going to the sanitary.
Yeah, there are floor drains. We have 7 floor drains in the existing building and 1 in the new addition. They're all going to be piped to the oil water separator.
Okay, and then to the sanitary.
Yes.
Correct.
I think what you're thinking of is they're not allowed to have floor drains if they don't go to an oil grit separator before going to the sewer.
Correct.
And they're definitely not allowed to go to the wetland directly.
And then the way that works is when you have floor drains and you have a separator like that and it goes, you have to register with DEP, you figure out what your average daily flow is, and depending on the level of flow dictates kind of what you have to do in monitoring and relaying all that information back to.
And how much you have to pay MDC for.
Exactly. Yep.
I'm just curious, are there traps in there, gas traps, or it's not necessary? Well, if it's going to there's got to be a gas trap somewhere where it's.
Correct.
connected to the
Typically,
soil.
it connects from the separator and you'd vent it back to the building and up the side of the building is generally how they're done, yeah.
Any other questions? My opinion is, not very impactful, no disturbance, that could threaten the wetlands. I would suggest turning this over for agent approval. Up to you. It's up to
I mean,
the
it's up to
commission.
us, I guess, yeah.
I would agree.
Or we could just vote on it ourselves.
Can't do that tonight.
Can't do that.
Comments, commissioners online, would you be okay with, turning this over to our agent for approval?
Do you need a motion to do that?
We will. Okay. We just want to get a consensus.
I'm fine. I'm good.
Okay. All right, then,
Just for the record, Ellen has dropped off.
okay. Make note of that in the record. Chris, you okay with handling this as agent approval?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, then, get a motion, that we, turn this over to, our agent for agent approval.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Wilmette, second by Commissioner Bashat. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, you work with Chris going forward.
Thank you very much for your time.
You bet. Have a good night.
Just a procedural question. So if we can't vote on it tonight, like, how soon can he approve it? Do you know, Chris?
So the process would be 35 days after they applied. That's the earliest I can run the newspaper ad.
Oh, we
Once the
still
news-
have to do that.
Yes, once the newspaper ad runs, there's a 14 or 15-day appeal period. I think it's 15. If we have no appeals in those 15 days, then we administratively issue the permit.
All right, we're gonna move on now to old business. Application IW 25-14 to amend the town of Newington inland wetland and watercourse map and to construct a single-family residence within the wetland upland review area at 33 Laurel Circle in the R20 zone. Applicant Rossetti Development LLC, owner SJ Fish and Sons Incorporated, contact Robert Rossetti. Application received 9/2/25. Public hearing opened 11/18/25. So we've closed the public hearing. We're going to go into deliberation phase. Any other comments, concerns commissioners have before we make a motion to approve? All right, seeing none. Do you have that draft for the condition that we're going to add?
Oh, yes. You would like me to read it again?
Well, can you give it to Commissioner Wilmette, because I'll have him read the motion into the record with the condition.
I'll need that.
Okay. Motion approved with conditions. We should also, this doesn't say anything in here in the motion about the map amendment. We should probably note that.
How would we express that?
We'll just say it, as you're reading, this is for the site plan and for the map amendment.
Okay, so motion to approve application IW 25-14 at 33 Laurel Circle with the 10 standard conditions plus one additional condition. Per section 11-10 of the regulations, any other conditions as the condition may require as properly motioned and approved, which would be this
Is that
11th.
condition 11? Yes.
Yeah, and that would be applicant to work with staff to design a planting schedule to mitigate chemical infiltration into the
into the,
Wetland.
what's that word? Adjoining wetlands?
Property to
Okay,
the
to the
south.
south and east of the same parcel and what's that?
Such plantings
Such plantings to be maintained
in perpetuity,
by
property owner.
property. Add that back.
Hold on, you gotta make the motion.
Yes, I'm making the motion to accept this.
You read that first part. You read
Okay.
the- you read the motion to approve.
Get a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Anderson. Any further discussion before we go to vote?
Who made the motion, John or Dave?
Dave made the motion, Keith did the second. All right, is Sue still online?
Sue is still online.
Sue, can you do a roll call vote?
Sue, you're muted.
Yeah, sorry, I can, just a minute. I have to trying to get to my. Okay, oh, geez, I'm sorry, hold on a second. Okay,
All right, so just as a refresher, Conway, Ostrinsky, Ellis are not here. Paskowitz dropped off.
okay,
And Commissioner Morris is sitting in, so he'll be voting.
okay, so Commissioner Morris is sitting in. Okay, so Commissioner Anderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Bashand,
Yes.
Commissioner Morris,
Yes.
Commissioner Sadil,
Yes,
Commissioner Wimett,
Yes.
Chairman Zilla.
Yes. All right, motion passes unanimously. That's it. It's a wrap.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Same
to you.
not quite.
All right. Moving on quickly, public participation on non-agenda items. No one in the room, anybody online, Chris?
Moment, please, trying to bring up the PowerPoint. Keep your screens open. Susan and Andreas are the only ones online.
Okay, we'll move on then. Communications reports, agent communication.
Okay. We have received a correspondence regarding a solar project, Connecticut DOT on Berlin Turnpike under the jurisdiction of the Connecticut Siting Council and Connecticut Deep and Connecticut DOT. Canopy mounted solar cells over existing parking lots. So there are areas of their parking that they would like to put solar array over. The plans don't show it this way, but the best I could use to describe it is if you have been to the mall in Manchester recently, meaning within the last few years, there's a large area of that on the north side where they have these just, you think that they're parking canopies, but they have solar systems on the roof. Now, since it's,
West Farms has it too.
Yeah, West Farms has.
they may, but I haven't been to West Farms in many years. Not to badmouth West Farms, just nothing I want there. That being said, it's not really within our jurisdiction. It's just a communication for our benefit. So.
Is it gonna be like over where the electric car charging stations are?
No, this is on the opposite end of the main DOT building. So
Oh, really? Okay.
the charging stations are on the property to the north of the main parcel. So on the other end, down towards Waverly Place, they've got some areas identified. The letter did come with a very poor quality, very small map. But that's the general area over there.
Just curious.
Now, the other item, I'm reluctant to bring this up because of all the aggravation Laurel Circle brought up, but in discussion with our new GIS technician and our old GIS supervisor, our IT department. They discussed the possibility of doing a presentation to this commission in January or February on what they have available for map products that we could use to update the town's wetland map. And if this is something of interest to you, and I think it should be, because there's a lot of things happening in the GIS world that could make a difference in how we approach these, this map product and our map amendment process. And I think that's something we should talk to, the commission should discuss if they'd like to have them do a presentation.
How would it change our process?
I would rather have them speak to you about that because I'm not familiar with these products. I haven't been fluent in GIS in many years. I took classes in college. That was a while back.
I think it'd be interesting.
It'd
I'm
be educational.
into cartography anyway. But
I think it'd be worth it.
Okay.
Chris, I'm a little biased on that.
I know you are. I couldn't hold a candle to what you guys are currently doing with GIS. We were using DOS-based software back when I was in school, and I just didn't go that direction. Interesting stuff, but not my end of the mapping world. And that's all I've got for agent communications.
Okay, town council liaison communications.
Got to give you credit for hanging in there, Gail.
Last meeting was 9:45. This one.
nice sweater.
Oh, thank you. Deputy Mayor Rada is under the weather, so I'll try and make this quick. We received a update on the two school building projects. The Anna Rental Building Committee construction is all done, and basically they're now in the closeout phase where they're just, balancing and reconciling. That's all done. The John Wallace was going in two phases. Phase one was 2 wings, and phase 2 was the remaining wing. And phase 1 be ready for occupancy. They're moving in January 5th. And they're anticipating that the whole project will be completed for September 26th. So that was very quick and certainly not as long and drawn out as Anna Reynolds.
Was Wallace remediation, was that environmental remediation or was that remodeling?
It was both because it was an open classroom. Remember from the 50s, 60s and 70s with the open classroom or whatever. And now because of safety concerns, they closed it to make individual classrooms. So let's see, there's going to be a public hearing on January 13th regarding amending the overnight parking ordinance. Currently it's from November to April. The proposal is to limit it to January and February. So January 13th will be a public hearing on that. The Permanent Municipal Building Committee has finally gotten off the ground. That's the one that's going to kind of oversee any major building projects in conjunction with the sponsoring department or the sponsoring body. So there's 5 like permanent members of the Permanent Municipal Building Commission. 2 have been appointed already. One is Stanley Sobieski, the other was Joe Harpy. The remaining 3 were a selection not by the political parties, but by the town manager himself, herself, whatever. So they did an open posting for anybody who was interested, and they got about 7 applications. And again, it was based on experience, desire, qualifications, and not on political party affiliation. So Jonathan Ashtolt selected the following 3 individuals: Steve Woods, Peter Mankey, and Rahul Abraham. So I believe the first kickoff meeting will be in the first week of January. And they already have 2 projects that will be assigned to them to kind of oversee and work with the sponsoring bodies. The first one is a dog pound, because the state statute says that we have to provide for safe and humane sheltering of lost, abandoned, neglected, or cruelly treated dogs. With a place where we were doing it for years, Connecticut Canine is being sold. So this committee The Newington Police Department is the proposing body, so they will work with the Permanent Municipal Building Committee and 2 members from the proposing body to develop alternatives and solutions to developing a dog pound for the town. And the second project that this committee will already have on their plate is for the decommissioned fire station number 3, which is on West Hill Road, or off of Chapman Street, actually. And the sponsoring, the sponsoring body actually is the town manager's office, because that's the town owns that building now since it's been decommissioned. And the fact is, it's fallen into general state of disrepair. This building committee will look into renovation and restoration for possible use as for storage or any other need as you might arise. So that's it. Thank you.
Well, Gail,
Yeah.
you brought up before that the town was offered first right of refusal on Cedar Mountain, and you couldn't reveal the dollar amount at that time. Is that more public information now?
I actually haven't seen it published anywhere.
Nothing new.
Are
on
you
that front?
thinking of the main parcel, or are you thinking of the smaller part on the north end that they offered for sale last year?
This was a new, it didn't include, this new one didn't include, I don't think, the 5 cottages. It was
Okay.
the other building.
So the 5 cottages was the one they did
Like
last
the
year.
lion, no, I'm talking about the lion's share. I think that's what you brought up last time, like the main hospital
campus.
complex.
Yeah, well, the camp, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's say I can't show it on 2 hands. So,
That's a big one. Yeah.
yeah, but we did, I do believe that the mayor has been authorized or was authorized to, just
Or
to
decline it or
refuse it at
whatever.
this point, right? But we haven't heard any other details in terms of if there's any other interested buyers or whatever, which is why I'm a little reluctant to give the price, because
Yeah,
there might be some negotiations going on between the state and the
Oh, yeah. I
interested
understand.
developers.
Anything in the works to improve pedestrian safety
Where
across the entire town?
We'd like some sidewalks, please.
sidewalks, we have talked about safety improvements all over the place. Garfield Streets hopefully will, be a little safer now.
The rapid flashing beacons are imminent.
Yes.
They're being
okay.
assembled and tested at the vendor's office in Orange. And when they're fully assembled and tested, they'll deliver them and install them. We have 3 sets going on Garfield at one set at each crosswalk.
In my opinion, the Garfield Street looks a little confusing. You're on the sidewalk, you're off the sidewalk, you're in a bike lane, you're sharing a narrow bridge with bus traffic, and then you're back on the sidewalk.
Well, we weren't gonna rebuild the bridge. So we did what we could do, and the bike path and the beacon is part of the grant, so we're gonna build them if we like them. Because that grant's the oldest grant we have active. It's 8 years old, or maybe 9 now. And we needed to get that finished so we could move forward with our other grant applications.
That's in your budget, isn't it? Sidewalk maintenance?
Yes.
Yeah, so he would be able to answer your questions in
I'm
terms of any
looking at doing approximately $250,000 worth of sidewalks in the next year.
new or
Replacement,
replacements.
because we've got so many in bad shape. We get to the point where we've put a dent in those, and we can look at new. I mean, I'm not saying we're completely ignoring new. We got the one on Cedar Street that we're applying for a LOTSIP grant for. So we're moving forward with that. That's the one between Maple Hill and Vincent to continue the DOT project. So the DOT project is scheduled for this coming construction year. And then our project, with the way the grants go, would be in the 2027 construction year. We have an alternate plan, one on each side, whichever one DOT and CROG like better. So we can move
The
forward.
town is responsible for Cedar Street sidewalks.
In this case, because we generated the interest as a result of the public information meeting last spring for the DOT plan, people from the Vincent Street area came out and said, we'd like to see this extended 700 feet to our neighborhood because we're landlocked. And the DOT was for it, but they didn't want to affect the schedule of their project. In other words, the additional right-of-way acquisitions that would involve grading or not was going to put it into the 2027 construction year, and they didn't want to wait for that. So they said, look, if you want to do it, we'll support you, but we're not going to include it in that project. We inherited it. That's why they're supporting us with the grant.
What's the town plan for speed cameras?
We're gonna start discussing it. It's gonna be an upcoming town council meeting, but it was brought up, I think, at the last meeting and the meeting before about, well, actually red light cameras.
Not red light, speed cameras.
Speed
like you did in
cameras.
Washington, Middletown.
Not sure, I could bring that up at our
Please.
next meeting.
Yeah, bring that up, please.
But I know, it's funny, like some people are saying, oh, you know, Big Brother, whatever, but it's like, you know, if you have a cell phone in your pocket, it's, I mean, everybody knows people know what we're doing right now.
That's funny because we don't know what we're doing.
Yeah, but no, it is a good point. I mean,
We need a shotgun exhaust camera. You ever hear those around town?
yeah,
How
no,
obnoxious that could be.
but it is, it is getting out of control, everything. I mean, I actually had somebody, I was stopped at a red light, you know, we have right on red, but I didn't feel safe. It's the guy behind me pulled around me, went around and took a right, and it's like, I don't know, I don't know what the issue is. I don't know how to solve it.
Start enforcing the law.
Yeah, if we have enough,
They have a lot of
police
restrictions on their ability to
on
do
their
that.
ability.
Lift the restrictions. Start enforcing the law.
Yeah.
Anything traffic related is a restriction.
Yeah, we're
basically.
limited in our, also, you know, the
Unless you
police,
run over somebody.
Enough is
staffing in
enough.
terms of, you know, traffic patrols as well, so, but it is becoming an issue as more and more apartments and, you know, dwellings get built, more and more cars and more people driving, irresponsibly. I don't know, but I will bring up about the speed camera. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next item is pond life and research. Alan is still offline.
He is.
We'll move on to adjournment. Motion to adjourn,
So moved.
Second.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, have a good night.
Jeff. If they did the wall here,
Yeah, just cut them
would that be
straight.
good?
It would be fine.
Can we stop recording?
I'm getting there.
Would that do it?
So why, if we can't vote on the application when it's first presented, if we had a motion here,